What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto loses his humanity towards his parents? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. And so, as seconds pass into minutes, minutes into hours, hours into days, days into weeks and into months and years, I finally realized without any trace of doubt that I was a jest. A living comedy perhaps made solely for the purpose of entertainment of a higher power? Or is it that I was created as a scapegoat for the fears, inadequacies, and unhappiness of the inhabitants of my homeland? Regardless of truth, as of now and the true purpose of me living to this day, I have survived. In no small part this is due to my resiliency, however I have not escaped unscarred, for deep, permanent, and unforgiving serrated scars constantly tear and grind at my mind and torment what's left of my sanity. I can no longer feel anything but negativity, in all of its forms from sadness to anger to hatred to paranoia. I feel these now as naturally as one feels normal emotions, leaving me what people call abnormal, which in my mind is an improvement. For without careless positive emotions running amok, without happiness to delude myself, without friendship to lessen the true load of my humanity, without concern of other people to cloud and confuse my natural judgment, I feel more than human. Given, it is hard for me to even consider feeling what is considered normal, as I haven't felt those dreaded emotions for many years. At many times I feel nearly normal, and therefore grieve my disposition with the people I am forced to be around and live with. I feel worthless, empty and meaningless. I lament living a single day of this hell, and I despise every single person who has ever wronged me, and even more the people who I see blindly living happily, when I have done nothing to them on a personal level. Most of the time, however, I feel as if I am God, that I am more than any human, that without emotion, without lament nor happiness, I am an empty shell, eager to absorb knowledge and power and free to make decisions not based in morality and righteousness. The path to true power in this retrospect is not obscured, but free to my manipulation and my advantage. However, I digress. I am sure you may wonder, who is this speaking, or something akin to, why bother with the introduction? And the answer is, my mind on a constant basis regularly rewinds time to relive the most important aspects of my past, and the best way to reflect on my life is with none other than my true reflection, thought a young child, no more than 13, as he stared at his blank, empty void of eyes in the cracked and dirty-looking glass in front of him. This young child is Naruto, and he was born in a time of chaos, and happened to be born in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Simply coincidentally, his life was forfeit as a sacrifice as soon as he is born due to unforeseen circumstances which neither he nor his mother nor his mysterious father could control. From what the boy knew after years of subtle investigations and subterfuge, he understood that his parents were both important people, although who exactly they were, he knew not. They just happened to have him as their son, and he happened to be born the day a demon attacked their home village, the village hidden in the leaves, Konaha no Sato. This demon was one of 9, named the Biju, who were immensely powerful creatures of pure chakra, which is the force by which all life exists. The Biju that attacked the fateful day Naruto was born was the Kyuubi no Kitsune, a powerful fox demon that was strongest of the 9. Its tails are said to be extremely powerful, enough so that one swipe of which could level mountains, create tsunamis, tornadoes, and firestorms. This terrible demon was mysteriously sighted outside the village of Konaha quite soon after Naruto's birth, and the only way for the Yondaime, or the 4th Hokage, to defeat this beast was to seal it away in a newborn infant, and the only one available that accursed day was Naruto himself. And so, since birth, Naruto has been both cursed and blessed to carry this vengeful, angry, wrathful, and psychotic demon within his body and be the target of hatred and loathing of his fellow villagers, who lost many loved ones during the beast's rampage. At the same time, however, Naruto was blessed with inhuman power, chakra levels, stamina and might, and had an unwilling but beneficial voice in his head that always gave advice and suggestions. However, even as the Yondaime's dying breath was the wish for Naruto to be treated as a heroic figure for saving the village, the Sandaime Hokage, or the 3rd Hokage who was previously retired before the sacrifice of the Yondaime, told the adults and elder council members of Naruto's status as Jinchuriki, believing they would understand Naruto's predicament. The adults simply exploded at the release of this information, demanding Naruto's execution immediately as penance for the 9 tales of aforementioned destruction and murder of hundreds of people in the village. Simply disturbed by lack of remorse of the people to even a newborn child, the Sandaime Hokage released a new law, that those who knew of Naruto's predicament were not allowed to release this information to others with a penalty of death, as the Sandaime sought to at least allow the younger generation to not treat Naruto with such distaste as the elder generation did. And even with this law, and although nobody spoke of Naruto's occupant, the dread, hatred, fear, and anger at Naruto was passed down to the younger generation, although they did not understand the reason why. Due to the mistake of releasing this information to the older generations, Sarutobi the Sandaime Hokage did not anticipate that Naruto's orphanage caretakers would mistreat him severely, that other children would even mistreat him and be rewarded for it, and that he was severely malnourished and neglected, even as a child. Sarutobi knew some of this would happen, but he did not even know the tip of the iceberg of atrocities committed against Naruto until years after he was born into this world set against him. Naruto's most distant memories were filled with even the taste of pure hatred, the smell of it enough to choke one foolish enough to ask about his past. For as Naruto grew and became more physically able, he was more and more severely beaten as a child, even to near death. The first memory that Naruto can pull from his miserable and abused mind is one of neglect and hatred. It was when Naruto himself was still living at the orphanage, along with many other children, most victims of the Kyuubi attack a few years ago. Naruto is alone in a small closet, with stale food on a plate on the floor, thus allowing insects and other vermin to gorge themselves on the boy's food. Due to his diet being like this for many years, he was extremely malnourished, to the point of near starvation on a constant basis. This day seemed as dreary and bleak as every other day in Naruto's mind, except today was filled with his innocent need for hope. Today was the day of hope for all the orphans, for today there would be a multitude of potential parental units there to adopt, as today was the monthly orphanage, open house, so to speak. All that Naruto was concerned with, however, was that he would be able to leave his room, and be able to see other people from outside the orphanage, the first time since last month's open house. Naruto sat impatiently in the dark and otherwise uninhabitable room, awaiting his chance for the caretakers to bring him out with the other children. He could not simply exit, for upon entering and exiting his room, his door was always locked to keep him in and away from people who despised him, or keep him out if he did something wrong, such as annoying a caretaker and decided to run into his room. Regardless, Naruto waited. He heard the multitude of footsteps and general commotion made by large crowds of people, eagerly awaiting his chance of seeing them all with his fellow orphans. Maybe this time, thought the innocent young boy, maybe this time I'll get a mommy and daddy, too. He heard as the caretakers presented themselves, making sure all the potential parents present knew exactly who was taking care of the children, teaching the children, and doing everything for the children. As they prolonged their speech, Naruto became more impatient. He was ready to exit his room and see his future parents. Then the part he awaited for came, the lineup of all available orphans in front of the crowd of people. Although many children were nervous, their need for parents kept them calm. They wanted to have their own as soon as possible. Naruto waited. About this time, as always, he would be released and told sternly by a caretaker with an angry tone in their voice not to do anything stupid or he would be without supper for a week again. However, as he heard the storm of younger and older children rushing past his door into the adoption hall, he heard the heavy footsteps of a caretaker following the miniature crowd of people. He heard the heavy footsteps stop by his door, as the children stampeded away, eager for parental love and care. He could tell this heavy-footed person was the only one in the hallway outside his dark room now, and he impatiently waited and whined to himself, waiting for the door to be opened. "Please open the door, Mr. Caretaker. I want to be adopted like the other kids." As he waited for an answer for the heavy-footed person outside his door, he slowly heard a noise he recognized and filled his innocent heart with dread and sadness. Naruto was hearing that chuckle. Not the chuckle one hears when an older orphan tells a funny joke to the little ones. Not the kind of chuckle you hear the adults make when they lock themselves in the bathroom across the hall from Naruto's door. The chuckle Naruto hears when malice is about and evil intentions are made. He knows this chuckle quite well, and as Naruto would know, he was scared. "Ha ha ha ha, you're such a stupid brat. Like anyone would ever adopt a defect such as you. You deserve no happiness, you deserve no parents, and you don't even deserve to eat that food we so graciously give you. Shut up, you stupid brat, and let the other kids have a chance to be happy and away from you." Naruto heard the footsteps go down the hall towards the adoption hall, and as Naruto registered what was told, he sat down in his scraps of cloth he used as a bed and cried. Many days and nights, no matter how Naruto acted nor what he did, the caretakers would be cruel to him. Naruto did not understand why. Sometimes he would blame himself for asking for more food, or being too loud when he coughed when he was sick, and that one time he was given food when the orphanage was running short on it and he puked it back up. That time he was beaten for wasting precious food. He always felt sorry afterwards for misbehaving, but this was a new level of cruelty, and Naruto understood now that this was his punishment for everything he did. He was no longer allowed to go to the adoption hall during open house ever again. Naruto curled up inside his cloth scraps of a bed that he shared on many occasions with rats and cried at the cruelty of his caretakers. He knew he was a bad boy, but he could never understand why they were so mean to him and so nice to all the other children. And so, without a cushion for the mental and emotional blows to him, Naruto's mind over time has sown the seeds of paranoia and sociopathic tendencies. Only a few years later, Naruto left the orphanage, or rather he was ousted by the spiteful caretakers that despised him so much. Since that point in time, Sarutobi the third Hokage was quite concerned with Naruto. Only hearing of this atrocity days after it occurred, to which the Hokage was furious about, he immediately gave Naruto an apartment for him to live in, although the boy was still only 7 years old. He also began teaching the boy basic shinobi tactics in his spare time, in order for the boy to protect himself. Needless to say, due to the ignorant hatred of the villagers, Naruto's apartment was vandalized weekly, if not daily, and he was cornered every time Anbu had their backs turned and beaten to a bloody mess. This occurred multiple times, the boy's psyche not doing too well. Every single time, the Hokage appeared in a flash with his most trusted guards, intent on dealing the punishment of death to all those who would attack this innocent boy. Under the interrogation, many claimed that the Kyuubi hypnotized them into attacking him, so that he could get his enemies out of the way. The Hokage and interrogators were furious at this outburst, to which all the other attackers agreed to, thus silencing them permanently via kunai to the throat. Sadly, even with the Hokage's law supposedly allowing Naruto to live normally and his own apartment and bi-monthly allowance, he was still abused, mistreated, tortured, captured numerous times, starved, nearly assassinated countless times, and much more horrible actions. One particular action against him has scarred Naruto more deeply than any other terrible day, for even the horrendous orphanage caretakers and the mobs of drunken villagers couldn't amount to the distress from the worst day of Naruto's young, ruined life. It was a typical day. Naruto was scavenging for food at the age of 8 due to the overpriced food all the stores seemed to have, when he heard the telltale sign of a mob approaching from the far side of the alley he was scavenging in behind a restaurant. Naruto saw the apparently alcohol-influenced mob approaching him, many holding dangerous household implements, others with broken bottles, and some with half-empty bottles they were still busy drinking. Of course Naruto at this point understood what would happen if he could not escape quickly enough, as the Anbu always seemed to be late when saving him, allowing at least a few minutes of torture to take place with the boy. He crouched low to the ground and ran quickly away from the mob, which was apparently outraged at his audacity of simple self-preservation. Kill that demon. Avenge all those who have died. Burp quickly before the damnable Anbu arrive. And don't burp in my face, you idiot. Can you spare some sake? Naruto ran more quickly than before in a full sprint, quite intent on leaving the alley before any more people arrived to do justice to the demon child, when he heard the saving grace that was multiple ninja appearing behind him using the shunshin. When Naruto turned with somewhat hopeful eyes to see his saviors, he was shocked to see not his regular Anbu guards, but imposters, with swords drawn, facing Naruto. The Anbu have decided to aid us in this holy task. Demon, meet your doom. Once he realized what was about to happen, Naruto silently pleaded for a godsend, a savior to keep him from the agony he knew was imminent. It never came in time. By the time Sarutobi heard of this latest violence, he hurriedly gathered his trustworthy sentinels when he realized that 4 were missing. He quickly used a shunshin to the alleyway where a large gang was being detained when he saw the 4 who were missing. They betrayed his commands. Instead they sought to dispose of the Yondaimi's very own flesh and blood, punishable by 6 days and 6 nights of torture, before an execution as dishonorable men and women are given. His face was livid as he saw they who were once his trusted Anbu. They laughed manically at Sarutobi. "It's too late, Hokage. The little demon is dead. We avenged Konaha. Ha 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 ha." The delusional Anbu screamed before he was harshly backhanded by a furious Hokage into a nearby concrete wall, cracking it severely as the ninja slumped to the ground silent and motionless, probably to never move again. "Anbu, take all of these monsters to the torture and interrogation division. Now, they are all to be executed, and the traitorous Anbu dishonorably discharged, tortured, and executed." As the Sandaime ended his righteous fury, he quickly hurried off to the end of the alley to see if, well, he didn't want to think Naruto was no longer living. He couldn't have possibly failed his most important mission. Thankfully, or so Sarutobi thought, he did see Naruto breathing, alive, with truly trusted Anbu using the best of their medical knowledge to help what was left of him. He noticed a terrible facial wound that would leave a set of terrible permanent scars, in a horrific Glasgow smile, along with many other unspeakable revulsions, especially when one medic had to pick up the boy's bloodied femur off of the ground and jam it back into the boy's body roughly into place before healing the muscle tissue around it quickly. Sarutobi also noted a set of horrific bloody whisker marks marring Naruto's face, no doubt an inclination towards the fox. Naruto awakened weeks later in the hospital, although he wondered if he was ever truly awake. At this point in time, Naruto had the thoughts scarred into his brain and body as well that he wasn't normal, this much he understood. He knew other children weren't treated like this, and he knew that every other person wasn't treated like that, put through a pain that intense. "I understand now, after so long, and with all this pain, they could have told me instead of shown me. I'm not meant to be happy like other kids like me, no wait, not like me. I'm supposed to be happy too? But maybe it's my destiny like Gigi says. But not to live happy like he says. I gotta be happy this way. I have to be like this, because it's my destiny. I have to live like this. I always have because it's my destiny, and I always will like Gigi says my destiny will be like. I have to be this." It was at this fatal point where Naruto stopped existing as a human child, and began existing instead as what he was meant to be, a weapon. In his mindset, he knows he cannot have friends because all children are scared of him and all adults banish him from their sight. He knows he cannot be happy because his destiny cannot allow it. He must be satisfied with being unhappy, which in his poor, fractured mind means he had to be this way, even if it hurt him so. Little did he know the pain would cease soon, emotionally and physically, and that he would be glad forevermore that his human emotions were destroyed, and that he would feel no more unhappiness while simultaneously feeling no happiness. He knows now that he cannot live by human standards, but by his own standards. He decided to begin training to better prepare himself for his no doubt horrific life to come. Little did anyone know of the great beast within him, slowly changing the boy's mind and body, and slowly forcing its vile influence into him, slowly pushing the normal human instincts out and replacing them with demonic imitations. The boy stood, dressing himself in blood-stained clothes and ripping out his medical equipment. He took hold of his now tattered black shirt and ripped a lengthy piece out, wrapping it around his face to cover his permanent acquisition. He took hold of his possessions before quietly leaping out the window into the night, not a soul noticing a thing. Years later, Naruto is playing in a park, well as much playing as he did anyway. He never learned what the point of it was, only that it was a way to exercise and stay active, and that it had some social value that did not matter to him. He was busy swinging by himself, watching other children across the park playing oblivious to his presence, although their parents occasionally shot a nasty glare in Naruto's direction. To Naruto, however, he knew it was normal and meant all was well. The children have evaded his presence for as long as Naruto could recall. He had been training much more often now, becoming truly a habitual trainer, constantly pushing his body to the absolute limits to become more prepared for his future, and thus while he was malnourished, he was lean, and contained high amounts of strong, lean muscle. Naruto now sported dark slim-fitting cargo pants to carry supplies of various kinds with him, tucked into his black combat boots. He wore a tight long-sleeve black shirt with a gray and red harness on over it to hold larger objects such as packs, weapons, or other paraphernalia, along with a pair of lightweight black gloves that stretched to his elbows. Over this he donned a large, tattered, gray cloak with hood that covered his person entirely, better to hide his hand seals or the drawing of a weapon from sight. This gave him a ghostly, haunting, spectral appearance that could easily blend in with darkness or light, the entire neutral gray cloak covering his head to his toes. Lastly, the boy wore a ragged scarf wrapped around his neck and lower face, mostly to preserve his secrecy, since with his hood and scarf nobody could see his face, and also importantly to hide his scars. He was the epitome of ghostly existence, since no skin could be seen, and all that could be perceived was a ragged and gray void. Eventually, as fate would have it, the children playing with a ball sent it flying with one of their special attacks, as they said, although Naruto did not understand. How is that an attack? That would never work on an enemy. The ball landed near Naruto, which the children seemed dissatisfied with. One bravely went near the lonely child to get their ball, but as he neared Naruto, who was still seated on the swing, his parents yelled from their place across the park, and came running over immediately with a few other parents to see what happened. As they neared and saw their boy looking at them with a questioning look on his face, and saw the ball near Naruto, they assumed what hateful villagers would assume about the demon boy. "You brat, how dare you steal from my boy? You insolent child, answer me!" The boy's father yelled at Naruto, who remained seated. "I said answer me." He grabbed Naruto by the front of his cloak and lifted him off the swing. Naruto continued to stare passively from his shadowy face at the fuming and quite furious adult before him. "You worthless child, if you know what's good for you, you'll stay away from my son and his property. Be gone, vile creature." He threw the boy with all of his might into the bushes nearby and stormed off with his son in tow. The other adults followed, knowing that their part was unneeded this time. "How dare I? I didn't dare anything at all. But I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe I'm always to blame? Maybe I was at fault." Naruto thought without interest as he brushed himself off and walked towards the academy for the day. He arrived in class before most of the students, and simply chose a seat far to the back of the room, a place where the teachers forsaken live in exile from education. He opened up his lesson scrolls he liberated from the unwilling library and began reading. Soon, no time seeming to pass to Naruto, the class was filled and Iruka-sensei was already calling roll, to at least make sure students learned their military skills for future servitude of their country. Iruka called all the names with haste, but noticed without even having to call that all the students were here on this most important day. Even the chronically lazy Shikamaru, for today was a milestone in the advancement of these ninja in training. Today was the day of their second to last exam, and thus far the most important. It was mostly a physical test today, but Iruka decided that since a shinobi must balance their mind and body to include a short pop quiz that no students were prepared for. "Students, settle down now. You all know how important today is, and I know you all have trained your body and chakra to prepare and do your best as Mizuki and I have taught you all. However, as a special bonus to the important exam today," Iruka trailed off, reaching behind his desk, and causing anticipation to rise throughout the room. "Today we also have a written part of the exam. How exciting!" A large groan echoed through the room from most of the students, anticipation clearly dissipated. "Mizuki and I will pass them out now. You guys have only 1 hour to complete this special added portion to the test. Begin when we give you the paper." And thusly Iruka and Mizuki passed out the paper that would even cause a genius prodigy to pass out from lack of knowledge. This test was made especially just for the students to fail. Asterisk 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 1 week earlier asterisk asterisk asterisk. Iruka, why do you persist in torturing our poor future shinobi? Surely you must jest, to give young students an impassable obstacle in this exam? Asked the Hokage in disbelief to a nearby obviously pleased Iruka. Well, Hokage-sama, think about it. If the students are faced with an impassable goal, what better way to determine how they deal with failure? There is a 100% guarantee that not a single student will pass every single mission they ever get. Why not allow them to cope with failure now to prepare for the future? This will allow them to prepare for the real life of a shinobi, surely, argued Iruka, who was intent on provoking mass displeasure from his students. The Hokage chuckled lightly. Ha, Iruka, your teaching abilities and escapades never cease to amaze me. Please, do this added portion of the exam. This will certainly do as you say. What a fine idea. I wonder why we haven't encouraged this before. Iruka walked out even more pleased than when he entered, with an exceptionally large grin on his scarred face. Asterisk present asterisk asterisk asterisk. Pencils down, everyone. The exam is officially over. A sigh of discontent flowed through the ears of all in the room. Apparently, Iruka thought to himself, my plan worked wonderfully. I see everyone seems unhappy with their failure, except Naruto? He looks like he normally does. But I suppose for him that's normal. Surely he is taking it hard as well, knowing how hard he trains. I will now pick up all your papers, and then you are all excused for 30 minutes for a lunch break. I hope all my brilliant pupils did well. Iruka added with a sly smirk on his face. While he did this for their betterment, he himself thought it was amusing as well, especially seeing the blood-red rage flowing off of Sasuke's visage. He passed down, or rather up the aisles of his classroom taking up tests as he advanced. A steady line of unhappy students flowed out the room behind him. He picked up and noted how many blank pages there were. He wasn't surprised that when he got to the snoozing Nara that he indeed performed well, but not perfect. Maybe he scored a 60 to 70% at most, especially since even Junin failed this exam. Lastly, he picked up Naruto's exam at the back of the classroom, but was surprised that all the answers were complete. Ha, Naruto probably just wanted to seem smart like Shikamaru. It's probably all false, no offense to Naruto. Iruka thought slyly. He picked up Naruto's paper and promptly dropped the stack of papers on his desk, prepared to grade them all. However, one small issue remained, in the form of a remaining, ghostly student before his desk. Naruto, did you want something? Asked Iruka dumbly. This was a test of failure? Naruto questioned blankly with an empty stare on his obscured face, his gaze a void. It is okay, Naruto, honestly, between you and me, this was meant to fail you guys. No need to look so glum. This was a test of failure, yes, but to see how you guys deal with failure. Try not to take it badly, okay? Iruka said in a fatherly way to Naruto. But sensei, I didn't fail, I passed. I was simply going to ask why it was more challenging than usual, but I suppose I should instead ask what my punishment is for nullifying the purpose of this exam. Iruka looked dumbstruck at Naruto, who inexplicably thought it would amuse him to make the teacher look stupid. He began shuffling through his stack of papers for Naruto's paper. Naruto, you didn't pass, trust me. Not even Junin passed, very few made over a 50%. It is utterly unthinkable that you, an academy student, could pass it perfectly. Not even Shikamaru. Iruka trailed off when he looked at Naruto's exam in detail. Iruka, in no other conceivable way to accurately describe it, was having considerable jaw-dropping action with a mixture of the most extreme disbelief possible along with suspicion. But it can't be. Naruto, you did. Iruka admitted in defeat as he realized Naruto passed perfectly. But how? It's utterly impossible without studying these precise questions beforehand. You didn't or couldn't have possibly known about this, the students were not told. Naruto, did you cheat? This simply cannot be. But sensei, you saw me. I wasn't cheating. Naruto, go have your lunch, I must speak with the Hokage. I want to believe you, truly I do, however, this is utterly impossible. Naruto silently left his awestruck sensei in a cloud of disbelief as the single smartest ninja in Konaha left his room. Iruka quickly arrived at the Hokage's office with haste, intent on somehow logically explaining Naruto's inexplicable, he didn't even know what to call it. It wasn't a test, nor an exam, nor a paper, nor even representation of Naruto, especially since it was all correct. It was simply a testament of Naruto's will. A battle of pen versus paper that undoubtedly shows the true nature of that which the world has never seen in many years, not since the likes of Itachi Uchiha. Iruka burst into the Hokage's office while his students were eating. Hokage-sama, Iruka exclaimed with a bow. My apologies for interrupting your no doubt serious matters you attend to, as he noticed the orange flash of a book disappearing behind the Hokage's desk in his flushed face. But I must show you something phenomenal. Iruka dropped Naruto's exam onto the desk of the Hokage. And this is the exam handed in by one Naruto Uzumaki. Ah, then I suppose, yes. Naruto is very, unequivocally intelligent, and has a brilliance about him even the wisest of the Nara would be envious of. Keep this test secret. Say what you must to Mizuki. Tell him, in fact, that Naruto was cheating. We can't let anyone know that Naruto is this smart, you understand, Iruka? If anyone hears about this showcase of Naruto's mental power, then Kami forbid the repercussions involved. All the Kyuubi haters will be marching the streets, exclaiming how he is possessed by ancient knowledge and must be executed. So for Naruto's sake, don't tell anyone. Yes sir, Hokage-sama. Iruka walked out worried for Naruto, but also slightly pleased that he helped teach possibly the smartest future shinobi to have served Konaha. I hope you, my pupils, have had a fantastic lunch, because I have exciting news for you all, said one conspiring, scarred ninja known as Iruka. My dear students, as you all know, this test is quite important to your success as a future ninja of Konaha, and what a fascinating instrument to measure the progress of our future country. However, I am displeased to say that everyone in this room has failed. Distress was rampant, and disbelief plagued the wide eyes of one Nara. You can't be serious? What a drag. One Uchiha was fuming, enough to at least have the capability to fry an egg on his face. Other students' outrages were equally spiteful and not well-mannered in the least. Naruto was the only calm one, not speaking, nor moving, or in any way reacting to this revelation. However, my students, in this, you have succeeded. By learning how to cope with failure now, you will be prepared for the future, as not one person in this room will ever succeed at every mission. Ponder on this wisdom, and learn from it. Learn to accept your mistakes, and learn from them. Iruka-san, I will never fail. My family name is Power, and power never fails, says one black-haired beast. I've never failed anything, and I never will. I will succeed at any obstacles thrown my way, and I will show the world how strong the Uchiha blood is. Iruka looked at Sasuke questioningly. Sasuke, although your goals are noble, your heart set, it is virtually impossible to succeed at every mission. It is guaranteed some will go wrong at some point, be it misinformation or such. You must learn to handle this now, when there are no lives on the line, as there could be in a true mission gone wrong. Very well, Iruka-san, Sasuke said, a conceited frown on his face, obviously displeased with his success today. Regardless, my pupils, this was just mental preparation. The true test today is beginning outside in the training area. Please, follow Mizuki, and let us begin to test your strengths and weaknesses. Iruka exclaimed as one smiling Mizuki led the students outside, through the halls and out the building. Naruto followed behind the parade of children, walking with Iruka to the testing area. Along the way, while children were speaking to each other and grumbling about their grades, Naruto felt no despair, no anger, no vindication that this was wrong, although for simplicity's sake, he had to ask. Sensei, why would you say everyone failed? Did I not do as well as I think? Naruto? Iruka started saying, before trying to find the right words to say. Look, for practicality's sake, son, I had to put the class under the impression that everyone failed, in order to mentally prepare them all for their future. You, Naruto, are prepared, I think, seeing as you didn't immediately cause an outburst when told everyone failed. You are prepared, but your information had to be forsaken to help the rest. Don't you see? Iruka explained honestly, hoping Naruto would see the reasoning. I understand, sensei. Thank you. Naruto walked away to rejoin the group now accumulating in the training area. Iruka thought to himself, I'm sorry, Naruto, it had to be done. Well, students, started Mizuki, standing in the center of the training area as the students watched. Now it is time for us to begin the practical part of the exam. First up is ranged weaponry. You must use 10 common ranged weapons of your choosing and hit the targets. Your score will be based on accuracy regarding vital areas of an enemy. For bonus, you can increase the range of throwing from 10 yards to 20. Your call. Students were called up, alphabetically by surname, and asked to throw weapons of their choosing at straw dummies with targets painted on them. Accuracy ranged from generally accurate 70% to a low of 20%. No real pattern was being followed. Kiba scored 0.5% and was quite furious, blaming the wind. Others like Sasuke were pleased with their results, Sasuke reaping a dashing 85%, a problem he called out to the wind, yet again. He stepped up, arrogant in manner, prepared to launch 5 kunai and 5 shuriken from the 20-yard line, a new feat for today. As he threw them, his eyes narrowed slightly as the wind really did slightly alter the trajectory of his weapons, causing said 85%. It is always the wind's fault, apparently, although Sasuke did score the highest regardless of distance bonus. Iruka had to explain to them, yet again, that wind will always exist, even in the midst of battle, and to succeed in battle one must fight with the wind, for if one lets the wind prevail, they would lose the fight. Naruto was up last. He grabbed the same weapon loadout as Sasuke, 5 shuriken and 5 kunai, and walked to the 20-yard line casually. Look at the fool trying to copy the Uchiha. He probably couldn't hit one target from that distance, let alone pass this test, Sasuke said casually, causing many other students to laugh and giggle at Naruto's expense. Taking bets now? 50 ryo, 100 ryo. How much will you bet? Asked one Kiba smugly, causing more uproar and comedy. Students, silence yourselves. Allow him to concentrate, said one Mizuki, trying not to laugh. Why sensei? He probably won't hit a single target. Laughed one student before hearing a thud, causing all of the laughter to cease and suddenly look at the results. It is astonishing, to them at least, to see every weapon in every vital point, so that every target would very much be dead. Naruto turned and walked back towards Iruka, passing students and Mizuki whose mouths were dangling quite low. Well Naruto, well done. Well done, indeed, Iruka proudly stated to Naruto. Mizuki, would you like to announce Naruto's score? 105% is his score. Very good, my boy. Alas, we must begin the next portion of the exam instead of celebrating. Mizuki? Yes Iruka, forgive me. I was overwhelmed, to say the least. Anyway, students, now we will attempt the jutsu portion of the exam. You will have to do the main 3 jutsu, transformation, clone, and the body replacement technique. For bonus, you may do another jutsu of your choosing. He began calling students up, same order as before. Every student successfully completed the main 3 jutsu, and the only bonus jutsu performed were completed by clan members, using clan techniques, an easy bonus for them. None of the non-clan students could complete bonus jutsu, although one student tried to cast a fire jutsu and ended up severely burning several trees along with his hands, so he earned no extra credit. Sasuke arrogantly completed the body replacement technique, before casting a clone of himself and making it transform into Mizuki, clearly impressing the students and both instructors. Very good Sasuke. Any bonus jutsu? Mizuki asked eagerly. Sasuke began flashing through hand signs before shouting his particular clan special, Great Fireball. A large sphere of intense red head flew from his mouth and into the sky where he was aiming, clearly earning bonus and impressing everyone there. Finally, Naruto Uzumaki. Please, impress us as you did before, Mizuki said haughtily. Naruto created a clone with no hand signs, before himself transforming into Mizuki, again with no hand signs. Not as impressive as I thought Naruto, do the body replacement now, please. It is done, said Naruto, the clone, as the Mizuki transformed. Real, Naruto poofed into smoke. They realized he completed a transformation and replacement at the same time, causing everyone to think his clone was fake, and he transformed into Mizuki. But truly he switched with his clone and his clone turned into Mizuki. Astonishing use of the techniques, Naruto. Very good. Although they won't net you bonus points. Have you prepared a bonus jutsu to perform? Asked Mizuki. Naruto turned towards the target area used for the previous test, and again using no hand signs, he held his hand with 2 fingers extended towards a target, before the target burst, straw flying haphazardly through the air in all directions, while small wisps of chakra evaporated from the point of impact. As silent as the jutsu was, Naruto stayed and walked back to his place among the students. Naruto, what was that? Iruka asked, afraid. He had never seen such pure potential before. It was a special jutsu, which is all you must know. The students were frightened by the pure destructive power, and Sasuke was fuming. How could a lowlife learn such a powerful technique, and he isn't even from a clan? Well, children, it is time for the final portion of today's exam, the physical fight. When it comes down to the pure raw potential of a ninja, it is how well he deals with his enemies head-on, no distractions. You will each fight Mizuki, one-on-one, and must lay a single hit on him without him blocking. For bonus, 5 hits must occur, Iruka explained. The students went up and fought to the best extent they possessed. Mizuki allowed himself to be slower, to make it simpler for students to fight him. Most passed within a few minutes, although a few of the weaker ones gave up, like Shikamaru, or lost in the fight, being unable to strike him. When Sasuke started fighting Mizuki, everyone's gaze was focused. It seemed Mizuki was having troubles fighting the young Avenger, as he was flipping, spinning, kicking, punching, and every other quick striking move available. Sasuke was overpowering Mizuki, and when the time limit was done, Sasuke had landed 4 strikes, the most thus far. "And now, you Naruto. Show me what you got," said Mizuki, planning to fight more ferociously than with the others in order to make him do poorly. Naruto stepped into the ring, when Iruka shouted, "Begin!" Mizuki immediately sped toward Naruto, attempting to take the young boy by surprise, only to find that when his fist was barely in contact with Naruto's face, Naruto sidestepped Mizuki and landed a series of 5 blows to his unprotected back, before the 5th and final strike forced Mizuki out of the ring, skidding on his stomach in the dirt. The entire battle took approximately 3 seconds. "Naruto!" Iruka exclaimed. "Why, you defeated Mizuki. Congratulations, you get full score and bonus." Iruka said proudly as he went to help Mizuki up, who was covered in dirt and shame was portrayed on his face. "It has been a very good testing day today. It seems you all passed, even though some could have done better," Iruka said to the now indoor class while eyeing a napping Nara. "At last, it is time to award the top 3 positions in today's test, and their due respect. 3rd place, a student who performed extremely well, Shino. Very good Shino, very good indeed. I had no doubts about you," congratulated Iruka towards the silent boy in the back wearing shades. The other students clapped politely, respecting their fellow who did better than them. Sasuke stayed silent, not praising his comrades' feats. "Next, 2nd overall, Sasuke. You better watch out, Sasuke. It seems one of your classmates may be stealing your thunder," Iruka said while smirking. Most of the students clapped for the fuming heir, while a few females in the room were calling out to Iruka to change his score to 1st place. After they settled down, Iruka continued, "Our last, but most certainly not least, student, who made perfect scores in all of his tests, Naruto. Good job, my boy." There was no clapping, no praise, other than Iruka. Mizuki stared at Naruto with distaste as he still had dirt on his favorite Chunin vest. Sasuke furiously made eye contact with said student, his anger veritable. Well, usually comrades commend each other for their successes, but at any rate, you are all dismissed. We have a week of leisure before our final exam next week. Make sure to train, study, do what you must. Naruto, Sasuke, Shino, keep up the good work. The rest of you, I hope you learned something from them today. Farewell, until then," Iruka said while starting to file papers among his cluttered desk. Mizuki left the room in a hurry, off to who knows where, and the students scrambled out of the classroom, cheerful to be free for the day, except for one quiet child. "Naruto," Iruka called out, just as everyone but said student left. The boy looked at Iruka questioningly before asking, "Yes, sensei? Do you require something of me?" Iruka felt slightly irked at the boy's constant nonchalant attitude, his passive state, and his neutral tones, willing the boy to show some signs of humanity. "You did well, Naruto. How about we go eat ramen, my treat, Naruto looked suspiciously at Iruka, remembering vividly what happens when a person he doesn't fully trust offers him food. Regardless of his instinctual feelings, Naruto obliged, knowing Iruka for a few years now. They walked to a small ramen stand where a nice old man and his daughter worked hard, and produced uniquely delicious ramen and other treats, before quickly ordering. "You did well today, Naruto. I wonder though, why have you always held back? I have known for quite a while that you train excessively, and I know you've been holding back, but I've never seen anything like that, son," Iruka said as he slurped up what was left of his bowl of soup. "Sensei, I wanted to stay out of mind, out of sight. The best way to do that is to do below average at everything, to not stick out any more than I already do. But now that I'm about to officially become a ninja, it doesn't matter now, since any more wastes of space senseless enough to cross my path will be on the wrong side of the law for me," Naruto answered truthfully as Iruka choked on his second bowl. "Naruto, but why would you want that? There's no reason to hide, the world is equally cruel to everyone." Naruto stopped eating and turned slowly toward his teacher, the light from the bar vaguely showing the silhouette of his icy eyes, as he darkly chucked, a hollow gagging sound. "Sensei, that is far from the truth." After their dinner and discussion, Iruka walked Naruto home, and he felt even more so that he wanted to help the boy. Naruto on the other hand felt some sort of brotherly connection to his teacher, even more emphasized after this night, since the man honestly wanted to help him, and he did not immediately judge Naruto because of his past. A week later, the final exams for the passing of Konaha's future generation of ninja was about to take place. Naruto, again, was in class, sitting upright, stiff, and silent when Iruka wished him luck, to which Naruto responded by nodding his thanks. Iruka then sat at his desk and watched him along with the other students slowly trickling in until the class officially started, at which point he proceeded to explain the day to the anxious students. "Well, my students, this will be the last time we meet as a class, hopefully. I hope you all prepared adequately because this is the last exam you will have to take before officially becoming ninja of Konoha. Mizuki, please pass out the tests." Iruka exclaimed happily, surely since he would be done with this rambunctious group of children should they pass. Mizuki haughtily passed out the papers, pausing shortly at Naruto's desk, frowning with distaste due to the humiliation a week earlier. He smirked as he laid Naruto's paper down and strolled away, Naruto never missing a detail with his constant observation. An hour later, with many disgruntled sighs, the class turned their papers in. Now, on to the practical part of the exam, which will be the same as last week's, if you recall. This time, however, we will individually change the rules for each student to challenge them a bit more than usual, so that nobody will pass without effort, Iruka explained, to further agitate the young ones. Some like the Uchiha scoffed at this minor detail. Others who were slightly less trained like the Haruno became anxious once more. Then there was Naruto, who simply made no visible reaction to this information, similar to Shino. Iruka glanced over his students' reactions quickly before smirking and continuing his directions. First up is the ranged weapons examination. Your loadout will be chosen by Mizuki and myself based on your last exam, as will the distance you must throw it. After going through nearly all of the students, whose scores varied quite much and was the cause of more discontent among the young warriors, he called up the Uchiha. Sasuke, due to your astounding progress as a ninja, you are to throw from 30 yards, the maximum range, and you are to use all shuriken, due to their higher difficulty compared to kunai. Go! Sasuke gathered up his strength with 5 shuriken in each hand at the 30-yard line before launching the deadly projectiles at the inanimate targets. Successful thuds indicated his higher-than-average accuracy, when Mizuki who was down-range called out Sasuke's score of 100% accuracy proudly, with many of the student body cheering and clapping. Sasuke seemed quite content at his score and thought to himself about all the time he spent in the last week struggling to train as much as he could with the most difficult of ranged weaponry, sure that not even Naruto could do the same. Finally, certainly not least, Mr. Uzumaki. Please, gather the same loadout as Sasuke, and head to the 30-yard line, Iruka said with a smile as he watched his most potential student prepare. Sasuke scoffed that Naruto was even in the same league as him, but accepted it and prepared to watch the boy fail terribly. Without even throwing his arms back to launch the weapons with enhanced power and speed, Naruto seemingly flicked the 10 shuriken at the targets, and the projectiles flew faster than the eye could follow, obliterating the targets downrange. Naruto, you failed to disappoint me again. Good job, Iruka proudly stated. Mizuki scowled downrange and reluctantly called out his perfect score. To say the least, the students were dumbfounded that this once poor student now outclassed the Uchiha heir, and said heir was very displeased. Next, the jutsu portion of the test, which will be administered in the same fashion as last week's exam. First up is, Iruka trailed off into the long list of names as each student once again produced adequate results. Sasuke produced the same effect that Naruto did a week earlier, and did the latter of the 3 jutsu together, firmly astounding the instructors. Naruto was next when he did something unexpected for his clone, transformation and replacement. When the dust settled, the students saw Naruto standing with an Iruka. Nobody was sure which was clone this time. However, when the second poof of smoke obscured their vision momentarily, they were surprised to see that the Mizuki and Iruka that were standing off to the side of the dirt training area was really a transformed Naruto and clone, while the Naruto and clone In the center of the arena poofed into Iruka and Mizuki. They realized that this boy just replaced himself with both Iruka and Mizuki, made a clone, and transformed all four beings at the same time, all in one move. To say the least, even the instructors were awestruck. That was, well, needless to say, Naruto, you passed. With flying colors, Iruka said in a dumbfounded manner. Finally, we have the physical examination. This will take the form of a battle royal, in which all of you will compete against each other in supervised taijutsu-only matches, Mizuki explained, still irked that a student beat him just last week. The students fought valiantly, each doing well in some areas, such as defense, but doing poorly in other areas. Both Naruto and Sasuke excelled in all, Naruto even managing to not be hit once in all of his matches, to which the Uchiha was furious. Shikamaru suspiciously observed Naruto, concerned that this student was particularly troublesome. Kiba was unhappy that he lost to the Uchiha, as he wished to test his mettle against Naruto. Mizuki called the final match to begin between Sasuke and his relatively new rival, Naruto, the call of which ushered total silence across the training grounds, Uchiha and Uzumaki staring at each other, Naruto seeing angry black eyes, and Sasuke seeing only the shadowy features of Naruto's face under his gray hood and cloak. This would be troublesome, as the full body cloak concealed the boy's movements well. Instantly, as if some secret alarm sounded only for the two combatants, they approached each other rapidly. Sasuke in his slight annoyance went with an aggressive move, instantly trying to lay a fist into the enemy's solar plexus. Naruto in mid-stride feinted to the side, only for the Uchiha to pass by him harmlessly, and before Sasuke could realize what happened, Naruto quickly tackled the boy hard enough to send him rolling. Sasuke was prepared for the next strike, a foot aimed for his chest. He caught Naruto's foot and tripped him, and he stood as Naruto fell, preparing to elbow him in the gut. As he flew to the downed Naruto, the other boy rolled over in the dust, and kicked out to nail Sasuke right in the stomach from an angle, which sent him flying clear out of the arena and into a tree. Poor, defenseless tree, it never saw it coming. With a real knockout instead of a technical one as had been the case for the other students, Iruka called the lunch hour, ushering the students off to their meals as he and Mizuki took Sasuke to the infirmary. Naruto scolded himself in the relative safety of his mind for being tripped by such an easy opponent. After the break, and all the students including one now conscious Uchiha were collected in the classroom, Iruka and Mizuki began calling names into the adjacent room to tell each student whether they passed or failed and give them or not give them a Konaha headband. Some students came out empty-handed, teary, and unfortunate failures. Others came out boasting loudly, causing a disturbance for many others. And then there was the Uchiha, who came out smirking with a relatively new headband tied onto his head, silently boasting of his power and allegiance to Konaha. Then finally, Mizuki and Iruka called Naruto into the room. Naruto, it seems there were some complications. I don't know how to say it, really. Iruka started, until Mizuki interrupted. Naruto, unfortunately you failed. There's absolutely no way someone could not use chakra when throwing shuriken to cause that amount of damage, especially one of your level. We've concluded you must have used chakra, and therefore you have failed a major portion of the exam. Iruka wanted to cut in, but as the Hokage said, keeping Naruto's real power under wraps was entirely crucial, and not at all optional. And not to mention, boy, your test scores were more than unsatisfactory, Mizuki sneered as he threw the papers at the boy who caught them, only for his eyes to widen slightly as all of his answers were incorrect, but the paper itself included questions he had never seen before. Genjutsu, so I must be meant to fail this test like the one from last week. Naruto thought. He said nothing to his instructors, but only stared. Naruto, you'll have to try again next year, Iruka said solemnly, unhappy that his little brother failed. Naruto nodded and walked off, and left the class behind, only to go to the top of the academy and ponder his fate. A haphazard void of uncertainty at the very least. There must be more to this. Naruto didn't use chakra surely, and I know he didn't get every answer completely wrong. His answers aren't even relevant to the material on the test. Iruka pondered. Mizuki found Naruto atop the building, sitting solemnly, probably contemplating and lamenting his failure. What an idiot, he doesn't deserve to be a ninja, but what better tool than a damn lucky brat to do my dirty work. Mizuki wiped his face of dastardly planning and malicious intents before donning a sympathetic look as he approached the gray form of the boy he so despised. Naruto, it's unfortunate that you failed. I was really hoping you would do well today, but… Look, Naruto. I'm not supposed to reveal this to you yet, but there is another way to become a genin. Mizuki smiled a bit too brightly as he told Naruto, who sat and quietly listened. Right, all you have to do is get past all of the elite guards in Hokage Tower to steal the Forbidden Scroll. With this scroll in hand, you must escape the same tower as surely some guards will come to stop you. And meet me deep in the woods outside the west gate, where you will find a small clearing and a shack. You will have until midnight to learn a single jutsu from the scroll. If you are successful, I will personally be there to give you your own Konaha forehead protector. How does that sound? Mizuki explained to Naruto. The boy wasn't foolish, he wasn't optimistic, he was extremely cautious, but for the sake of his career, he knew he shouldn't believe a word of what Mizuki said, as it was probably some ruse to get him in trouble. But then again, unrestricted knowledge from the scroll and guaranteed entrance into the shinobi world? Even if this was probably a lie, Naruto couldn't pass up this opportunity. I'll meet you tonight, then, sensei. As Mizuki sped off with a slightly twisted but certainly triumphant smile on his face, Naruto waited until he was out of sight before heading towards Hokage Tower, the sun still shining upon the town. It was night and the moon was shrouded by thick blankets of dark clouds, providing many stretched, dark, and intense shadows across the quiet village of Konaha. However, if one were to look closely, they would see dark, quick blurs of something jumping from rooftop to rooftop, staying hidden in the shadows when a bright ray of moonlight was revealed, before continuing as the moon was covered once more. The process would continue for many minutes, the blur slowly making its way towards the western wall from the Hokage Tower, urgently. While the gate guards were on duty, neither noticed the oppressive blur scale the wall and leap into the nearby forest, unseen and unheard. The blur sped through the canopy, quickly hopping from branch to branch with adrenaline-pumping endeavor, before arriving at a small clearing with an abandoned shed. The mystery character stopped before one could see blue eyes and licks of blonde hair as Naruto pulled back his hood, carrying a rather large scroll on his person. He checked his surroundings once more before squatting on the ground and opening the large scroll, before he delved into the mysterious and powerful ancient Forbidden Scroll, intent on learning the techniques contained therein. Meanwhile, ninja within the village were quickly becoming more and more hectic, searching every nook and cranny for a sign of the now missing Forbidden Scroll and the boy who took them. One of the guards surrounding Hokage Tower saw a gray-cloaked child fleeing the scene before losing him, and called to arms other ninja of the village. It was at this point even Chunin were alarmed and sent out to detain the boy. Mizuki couldn't have been more pleased with this new progress. He rushed towards Iruka's apartment before hurriedly knocking on the man's door. He opened it to see a still half-asleep Iruka who asked, "Mizuki? What are you doing here at this time of night?" before he noticed Mizuki's dismayed appearance. Iruka, Naruto must have snapped after failing his genin exam. He's stolen the Forbidden Scroll and has eluded our searches thus far. We need to find him, now. Iruka was wide-eyed with horror and sorrow, feeling less of a man and friend for failing his brother-like figure. Let me grab my gear, Mizuki, and let us make haste. Mere minutes before midnight, Naruto was still hidden in the nifty little clearing, the scroll unraveled before him. Although Naruto knew even he couldn't use some of these techniques in many years, he knew just how valuable and powerful they were. So Naruto had been copying the most interesting jutsu from the scroll into a smaller scroll he kept with him, a notepad of sorts. He had also learned a new clone technique to make his clones into solid illusions, powerful allies to help fight enemies in real time. It was at this point where Naruto neared the end of the scroll and closed it as he heard someone approach. Naruto noticed it was Iruka that had found him, instead of Mizuki. "Naruto, what have you done? What were you thinking, lad? You've stolen one of the most valuable treasures in our village and have desecrated it as well. The Hokage himself has ordered all active ninja to search for you and to detain you. What is wrong with you?" Naruto felt slightly upset while he let this sink in, before quietly responding. "Mizuki-sensei claimed this was a test in order for me to advance to genin rank. It appears he hath made fools the ninja of this village, and concurrently with the search of loyal ninja, he must be searching for me and this scroll. We should bring this back to the Hokage in the confines of Konoha's walls. No, Naruto. Wait! A certain silver-haired sensei yelled as he too entered the clearing. You have passed, very well. All I need is the scroll so I can bring it back to Hokage-sama and you will have earned your forehead protector. Hand it over now, Naruto. Iruka was shocked, to say the very least. This despicable man wanted to steal this powerful relic and frame Naruto simultaneously. He was willing to believe that Mizuki was willing to escape the land of fire with it, as well. Mizuki, how dare you frame Naruto? This boy has worked very hard to get where he is today, and you mock him and me as his proud sensei, with this foolish charade. Surrender before the Hokage or Anbu get here, and I will make sure you are kept safe from harm. Iruka pleaded with Mizuki. You have absolutely no idea how much of a brat Naruto is. Nor can you conceive your own foolishness, you threaten me? I will kill you and that demonic waste of space here, and escape with a powerful knowledge. Mizuki quickly reached behind his back and launched a completely massive shuriken at Naruto, who was frozen in place, deep in thought. Iruka is proud of me? But why? He stared at the oncoming metallic weapon, approaching his skull at fatal speeds, before he was pushed to the ground and Iruka covered him, taking the shuriken in the spine. The weapon lodged so deep within him that the tip of the weapon was protruding from his abdomen. Sensei, why would you protect me? Why would you sacrifice yourself for me? You are more important and powerful than I. Sensei, you shouldn't have done this. Naruto said in shock that his sensei was bleeding out above him, and for the very first time in a very long time, Naruto felt fear, anger, and anguish boiling inside of his chest. Naruto, you are like a brother to me. Iruka wheezed out as he coughed up blood and fell to the side of Naruto in the dirt, breathing heavily while still keeping eye contact with the boy. Mizuki jumped down off of the tree he was perched in and began pacing towards the downed duo. You remind me of someone who has lost everything. Naruto, your life is just beginning, and you have much potential. You must survive past this day. And you must show the world who you are. And you mustn't let Mizuki escape this unscathed with the scroll. Naruto, no matter what anyone says, you are neither a monster nor a demon, you are a human being. And I am proud to have been your sensei and your brother. I am proud to have known you, my friend, Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka gasped one last time before Mizuki appeared behind him and shredded Iruka's back, wrenching the massive weapon out before swinging it around again to plunge it through Iruka's head. And with that fool gone, you are next, Uzumaki. Hand it over, and I'll make your death painless. Naruto felt empty, like he had for years, devoid of emotion, until a moment ago when he watched Iruka's face distort with pain before the slashing weapon was sliced through his head, covering the boy in his blood. Iruka trusted him with the scroll, and he wouldn't let his sensei brother die in vain. Alright Mizuki, I surrender. Kill me quickly, and take the scroll. Leave this place free of your treachery, fiend. Mizuki looked at the downed boy, covered with Iruka's blood, and laughed coldly. I was joking, you monstrous brat. I'm going to torture you, slowly, and make you wish for death, one that will not come until I am finished flaying you and ripping you limb from limb. He stalked towards Naruto, a murderous smile on his face. He grabbed a kunai from his belt and prepared to slice into the boy when he felt something was off. He looked behind him and beheld a second Naruto with a second scroll strapped to his back, although still covered with Iruka's blood, aiming for Mizuki with his two fingers extended. Before Mizuki realized what was about to happen, he leapt out of the way just barely from a fatal shot. Instead, his shoulder burst into bloody, bony, sinewy bits as his right arm was blown into the bushes. Mizuki screamed in horror more so than pain as he faced the boy before he knelt down and covered the bleeding and fractured hole where his shoulder used to be located. The Naruto on the ground disappeared into a smoke cloud, Mizuki realizing that it was a clone of some sort. Naruto coldly said aloud to him from across the clearing, "You will not leave this place intact, Mizuki. You will pay for what you did to Iruka-sensei tenfold." He raised both hands with both index fingers and middle fingers extended towards Mizuki, who snarled at the threat before leaping away where the ground exploded from the force of whatever Naruto was doing, before he looked back at the boy who fired his second jutsu from the other hand that hit Mizuki in the knee, which was accordingly blown to bits as his shin and left foot fell to the ground, twitching, while Mizuki screamed louder. He was grounded, unable to neither stand nor fight as he could gain no inertia to put force in his attacks. Naruto neared the downed Mizuki. Anger quite evident on his face and vengeance in his thoughts when the boy realized he had nearly no chakra left. He would have to do this the old-fashioned way. He neared Mizuki, who was bleeding profusely, and grabbed the traitor by the throat while kneeling beside him in the dark dirt, the blood looking darker than usual in the pale moonlight. "Face your death now," was all the boy said before he jabbed his other hand deep into Mizuki's abdomen, just under the solar plexus, before reaching up and grabbing Mizuki's heart in his fist. He had injured no organs, so Mizuki was conscious and could feel the boy's hand enclose around his heart, before screaming in absolute terror, "You monster!" As Naruto clenched his fist and the organ was reduced to globs of bloodied tissue, before retracting his arm from the now obviously dead traitor. The Hokage had been also looking for the boy along with his many other squads of ninja, when an Inuzuka Anbu alerted the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, there is a massive amount of blood nearby. I'm nearly retching from the stench, about 70 yards in that direction," he said as he pointed toward some inconspicuous trees. The Hokage left with his personal detachment of Anbu towards the location detailed, before even they without enhanced senses of smell could practically taste blood in the air, its stench unquestionable. They spotted in the darkness a small clearing ahead, and when the Hokage broke through the surrounding veil of trees, his heart skipped a beat or two. The Anbu with him immediately stopped in horror, and the Inuzuka was already retching in a bush, unable to handle the intensity of the smell, his canine partner whining alongside him. What they found was an old shack, and from their point of view separated two different scenes of vast difference but similar eerie dread. To the left of the shack was a mutilated Mizuki. One arm was totally missing, as was his leg from the missing knee down. There was an obvious gaping wound in his chest that exposed many of his organs and tissues to the world, and they could see massive amounts of blood still pouring from the wound, filling them with terror and dread, although in the darkness they couldn't make out the final expression on his face. To the right of the shack, however, they spotted the boy Naruto, just barely in the darkness, kneeling over an unmoving body, a pool of blood surrounding the boy and his as of yet unknown corpse friend, and they could hear the slight sounds of tears falling. Something the Hokage thought he'd never hear from Naruto again. It was at this point one of the Anbu cast a light jutsu so that they could elucidate the situation. The immediate detail they saw was that Mizuki's facial skin was flayed, leaving him looking like a human meat puppet, even so far as his eyelids being removed, along with his lips, and all of the cartilage from his nose. Those that weren't already shivering in fear were now shaking explicitly. What they weren't expecting, or were expecting but didn't want to see, was that the gray-cloaked Naruto was completely soaked in blood, panting from exertion of some sort, and crying. When they looked to see the final figure of the three, they gasped, seeing a dead Iruka with blood pooling from his back and his head nearly sliced in twain, causing more blood to pool onto the forest floor. Naruto looked up, tear stains combined with blood stains to give a totally horrific visage, the ice-blue eyes unfocused and displaying exhaustion. "Orders, sir?" An Anbu asked the Hokage, whose mouth was agape with indescribable shock. Inside the Hokage tower, two figures were seen in the dimly lit office of the leader of Konaha. One was tall, wide, and sported a white cloak and hat. The other was small, black, covered with dried blood. "Naruto, tell me what happened. I didn't know Mizuki would." The Hokage trailed off, disgusted at the recent finding. "This wasn't supposed to transpire, my boy. Mizuki's harsh actions were unprecedented." The Hokage spoke softly, not wanting anyone else to hear what was to be said between he and the blood-covered boy in his office. "Gigi, you told me to go through with Mizuki's plan. And I did, and it's my fault that Iruka died. I should have been prepared. I was caught off guard, Gigi. I didn't mean for Iruka to die," wept the boy, fresh pink-tinted tears rolling off of his face and into his dark scarf. Probably not the first time the garment had been soaked in blood. The strongest ninja in the land, the great professor and Hokage of Konoha, kneeled before a child and hugged him, feeling the boy tense greatly. "Naruto, please my boy, tell me what occurred. I need to know. It wasn't your fault. Nobody could have anticipated this butchery." Naruto calmed down, and backed away from the Hokage, before sitting on the nearby chair, knees hauled up to his chin. "When I came here earlier today after Mizuki spoke to me, you told me everything would be okay. You told me so I did Mizuki's bidding while you prepared your ninja to catch him red-handed. I was waiting for Mizuki and learned a few techniques from the scroll before he arrived, shortly before. Iruka? And he tried to trick me into giving him the scroll when Iruka intervened. He launched a Dai shuriken at me and I couldn't react in time. It was my fault that Iruka had to sacrifice himself for me. He took the hit, GG. Then Mizuki came and killed him, and when I saw the life leave Iruka's eyes, something came over me. I couldn't control myself and I wanted revenge. I did a perfect shadow clone off in the bushes out of sight and did the body replacement technique with it, without Mizuki noticing. He was about to attack my clone when I used my special technique to blast his arm and leg off, and then, I don't know why, but something told me, commanded me to eviscerate him and rip off his face. I'm sorry Gigi, I'm so sorry. The boy wept and hid his face in his knees. Naruto, there's no need to apologize. Iruka did what he was meant to do, and that is to protect our village. And you, Naruto, you were a brother to him. Don't allow his sacrifice to be in vain, boy. Live, and his legacy shall live in you. Now Naruto, you mentioned something persuading you to do those violent acts? Do you remember anything specific? Did you feel different or see anything odd? The Hokage asked with worry. The boy quieted down and just barely looked up towards the old man, who was startled to see blood-red eyes with slit pupils. I felt angry, I felt powerful, and I felt like I had the power to avenge Iruka-sensei. Gigi, I felt anger before, but that wasn't normal. I felt like a monster. Naruto, the old man exclaimed worriedly, before the eyes returned to normal hues of blue. That power you felt it is a special power only you have. You cannot allow anyone else to know you have it, alright? Many people would envy your power and try to harm you to attain it. Do you understand? You must learn to control it, lest it control you. I will aid you in this endeavor, however, at a later time. Naruto, I'm going to place you in the intensive care unit for this night. You are tired, and your special ability seems to take a toll on much of your chakra and physical energy. I will bring you there, focus on resting, okay? Naruto nodded along as the Hokage spoke to him. The old man stepped up to the boy, put his intended comforting hand on the boy's shoulder that jerked back slightly before they disappeared from the office, only to reappear in a medical room prepared at the Hokage's request earlier. Naruto wrenched his shoulder from the Hokage's grip and went to lie down, slowly losing consciousness as he watched the Hokage's worried visage fade into darkness. Inoichi, called out the Hokage softly. A figure faded into view from a dark corner of the room, answering the Hokage's call. I need you to keep a watch on Naruto and run diagnostics on his mental state. He seems much calmer than I would expect from someone his age. I'm worried for him, Inoichi. Truly, keep me updated on his status, commanded the Hokage. Yes sir, Hokage-sama. And, on a side note, regarding my observations, started the clan leader, obviously he is much more traumatized from not only his past, but this event as well. I think he is losing his humanity, losing his emotions, Hokage-sama. He is becoming a machine, slowly, but surely. I'd hate for him to scrutinize something such as feelings, abhorring them. And this is providing his tenant with room to manipulate and twist, which I'm sure is the cause of Mizuki's gruesome demise. This is a road that will lead to disaster if he doesn't stop this, unless he learns to control the beast. But that is probably a worse outcome, a machine made to kill, controlling the vastest and powerful chakra source known. The Hokage set down a new forehead protector by the boy's side before he looked at the man and whispered, "I know," before vanishing. Hours later, in the light of the pale morning sun, a certain shrouded child with a new Konaha headband exited the hospital and made for the academy, since today was graduation day, the day where all those who passed the final were officially congratulated as ninja of Konaha by their instructors. Unfortunately, none of the children were prepared for what was to happen today, as both of their instructors were very dead. The class was slowly filling like normal, except the excitement was palpable. Students were happy that this was the last day they were considered children, and excited that after this day they would start their rise to greatness and fame while protecting their home. Hardly anyone noticed the absence of the instructors, although the ones that did were worried. One of the instructors was always here to watch over them, be it Mizuki or Iruka. Nobody else seemed to care, taking it as part of their graduation celebration. So troublesome, thought our favorite sardonic genius. The Hokage, on his way to the academy to let the graduates know their teams and congratulate them, noticed a lonely Naruto walking about 2 blocks ahead of him. The crowded streets seemed to part for his passage, alienating him. The old man, disregarding greetings and other salutations from his villagers, swept past them in a rush to keep Naruto in sight, but not to alert the boy to his presence. He followed the boy closely, watching his every move, following him all the way to the academy undetected, or so he thought. Naruto on the other hand was quite suspicious and very well aware that a certain old man was following him, very paranoid about the old man's intentions. Naruto at this point was sure the Hokage didn't trust him, or didn't even like him, but only treated him differently because of Naruto's own secret power. He knew that if he should let down his guard, the old man would take advantage of him, and Naruto couldn't let that happen. He couldn't allow anyone to abuse his powers. He feigned ignorance all the way to the academy, and traversed the halls to his own classroom, where he turned and walked through the door, catching a glimpse of the Hokage out the corner of his eye briefly before stepping into the room. The Hokage didn't notice due to the shrouded face of Naruto, and for one of the most powerful ninja around to not notice eye contact, that was certainly indicative of something powerful about the boy. The Hokage watched with sadness in his eyes as the quiet, seemingly emotionless shell of a boy passed by everyone, as if the world and he were separate. He stopped at one end of a long hallway in order to watch Naruto from around the corner, only to barely hear what the other students would call out to him in order to make a realistic prediction and help Naruto become more humane. He saw the boy turn and barely caught sight of his eyes, although they were shrouded in shadow by his cloak, but he didn't notice those very eyes flash towards him before the young shinobi stepped through the door. The old man with guilt heavy in his heart quickly advanced to the door of the classroom, but stayed out of sight in order to listen in on the soon-to-be graduates and confirm what he feared to know, the boy's outcast pariah status. He watched stealthily through the door and listened closely with chakra-enhanced hearing as conversations and various sounds quieted as Naruto passed into the room and set forth for his back-of-the-room station. A brash, but unsurprisingly stupid Inuzuka boy barked out akin to the partner he was always with. "Hey, this is only for graduates, you loser. You left here without taking your forehead protector, so we all know you failed." Ha! The class, or those that were brave and or stupid enough, became ablaze with laughter and taunting insults at the quiet boy's expense, although he seemed undeterred. He took his place and sat quietly, not even acknowledging that the boy spoke, and the laughter quieted down into an intense silence, the oppressive nature and silence of Naruto bringing to an end all merriment and joy, not to mention they finally noticed a glint of metal beneath the boy's cloak, his forehead protector used as a belt. The Hokage decided this was enough, as he saw what he needed to observe. He chose this moment of awkward and oppressive silence to burst forth into the room, head spinning from the back of the room towards the front, before students exclaimed, "Hokage-sama," realizing who it was. "Greetings, young pupils of Konaha. I am here to personally commend your skills and valor and introduce our future generation of ninja to their future careers." The Hokage started to speak, when the same loud-mouthed child from before spoke. "Hokage-sama, where is Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei? Yesterday they said they would be here to personally see us off." Murmurs were heard, whispered around the classroom. The Hokage sighed heavily before continuing with a solemn note in his voice, which Naruto caught easily and once more realized it was his fault. His brother and ex-sensei were killed. It seems that Mizuki was a traitor to the village, and in the process of defecting from us, tried to steal the forbidden scroll. Gasps were heard, and Kiba asked the question on the mind of the majority, what happened? Mizuki killed Iruka in the process, and tried to escape the village with that powerful tome of knowledge, when Naruto dealt with the traitor himself. I commended Naruto for his skills in dealing with such a powerful threat, and gave him his own Hite 8 and promoted him early this morning. Gloomy whispers were audibly heard around the room. Iruka was quite the beloved teacher, and some heads turned towards Naruto in the back, who sat motionless and unreadable. Although his bravery is commendable and Iruka's death is mourned, we must continue with this graduation. Now, I will call out the teams, and the 2 ninja on your team will be your allies, your brothers and sisters, your family for quite the long time. It is best you get to know them explicitly so you may work together effectively for your ninja career, understood? Rounds of affirmative mumbles were heard, although the impatient tension was also palpable. The Hokage trailed off into team lists, calling off names of graduates and telling them their team number and Junin-sensei, respectively. "I can't believe I was paired up with Sasuke-kun," yelled an energetic, pink-haired girl with green eyes. "Sasuke-kun, isn't this wonderful?" she asked the other teammate with a large, slightly too happy grin. He sighed heavily and wondered why it was his problem to be teamed with a fangirl and powerful, oppressive and threatening rival. When she didn't get a response, Sakura turned towards the other teammate, intent on trying to speak to him. Of course that notion died quickly when she saw his threatening dark presence looming over the two, silently. She shivered and stayed quiet, content to simply watch her precious Sasuke-kun. At this time, all of the other teams had left, leaving only the three in the classroom since the Hokage had important issues to see to, such as the demise of their old sensei. They had been waiting for over 2 hours now. Sakura sighed, wondering how such a nice sensei like Mizuki could be so rotten, and became sullen at the thought of her favorite teacher's death. She ended up turning towards Naruto anyway, although she was unable to see his face and never had, nor had she even seen his eyes before, she could only see the darkness under his cloak. She summed up what little bravery she possessed and asked him in a quiet voice, "Naruto, did Iruka just die from Mizuki like Hokage-sama said? Are you sure he didn't kill Mizuki himself before dying and you're just taking the responsibility for it?" She didn't expect the boy to sharply turn his head towards her, which caused her to stumble backwards with fear. Then the dark boy spoke. For the first time the pink-haired girl and the Uchiha heir heard his raspy voice, "Don't you dare bring shame to Iruka's legacy, you petty, thoughtless imbecile." The two lesser teammates were now both looking at the boy who was standing and advancing towards the downed Sakura, his intimidating presence causing her to whimper in fear and crawl backwards. Sasuke, although he didn't like the girl, stood up as well to intercept the boy before he got to her, and prepared a defensive stance. "What are you doing, Uchiha?" inquired the intimidating figure. The boy prepared to speak when their sensei burst through the door upon a scene that made him wonder, seeing two tensed figures over a floored female figure. "Our sensei is here." He vanished from the view of the Uchiha and appeared before his sensei. The Uchiha realized he and Sakura just mistook his harmless walking toward the door for something potentially violent, and felt quite stupid before he helped his pink-haired teammate up and they made for the front of the classroom. Well, that certainly wasn't odd at all. "Hello, my pupils, I am your new sensei, Kakashi. And it seems I have a less fortuitously designed team than I anticipated, quite unfortunate, really, but I will manage with what I am provided with. Come. Let us meet upon the top of this building, immediately, post-haste, promptly." He vanished, leaving an impassive Naruto and angered Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto also disappeared, leaving the two others to take the long way up. The two plotters arrived minutes later, seeing their sensei and other teammates staring at each other, intensely, or so they thought, being unable to see Naruto's face. Their sensei was of medium build and height, and most noticeably he bore his forehead protector over his left eye, making him a technical cyclops, and he donned a face mask as well. They noticed Kakashi with an apparent smile on his face hidden beneath his mask, staring at the silent boy, who Sasuke would bet all his family fortune on wasn't smiling. "Ah, you have arrived, at last. Very good, now we can really begin. I am your new sensei, Kakashi. I will be training you, taking you on teamwork building missions, and supervising your advancement in general as a new ninja of Konaha. Firstly, I'd like you to introduce yourselves to each other and me, so we can all get a feel for you as a team. You, Pinky, go first." Sakura looked dumbfounded, before asking, "How should I do this?" Kakashi looked skeptical before deciding to give an example. He spoke in a mocking tone to them, "Hi, I'm Kakashi. I like certain things, and don't like certain other things, and my dream is to do something." Sakura's eyebrow twitched along with Sasuke's this time before she began her introduction. "I'm Sakura Haruno, a member of the well-known Haruno clan, and I like a certain person." She interrupted her introduction with a few giggles before continuing. "I dislike mean people who act so condescending. And my dream is to bring honor to my family and be the wife of." She giggled much more this time. Kakashi looked slightly distraught before pointing to Sasuke to start. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha, sole surviving member of the prestigious and powerful Uchiha clan. I enjoy training, learning my clan techniques, learning any valuable ninja skills in general, and being condescending." Kakashi noted that the boy purposely added the last one to deter Sakura from chasing him, but the starry eyes she was making at him told him it didn't work so well. I dislike annoying people, weaklings, dead weight. My dream is to avenge and rebuild my clan. Sakura continued staring at Sasuke in a glorified daze while Kakashi thought to himself, perhaps I should take care of his mental state as well. He seems a bit too obsessed with power and Itachi. He noted Sasuke backing away from a slowly advancing Sakura before he broke the silence as he pointed to Naruto. Naruto didn't move and barely whispered out his introduction. I am Naruto, before silencing once more. Kakashi looked at him awkwardly before realizing that was all he was going to say. Well then, Naruto, it seems I have my work cut out for me. Right, it seems you all know each other a bit more now. However, there is one small detail you graduates weren't told quite yet. Kakashi trailed off and laughed slightly, making Sakura feel a tad uneasy. The graduation you all did was a test to see who could take the actual graduation test, and before we become an official team, you have to pass the real test. Sasuke had a quivering eyebrow, his anger apparent, and Sakura just had an open jaw, stupefied. Yes, you all have to show me you have what it takes to be a true ninja. And so tomorrow, at 6 a.m., meet me at training ground number 7. Oh, and try not to eat, because you'll probably puke it up. Ta-ta. Kakashi vanished from view, an annoying smile beaming at his 3 potential pupils from behind his mask. The 3 departed, Sakura trailing Sasuke and pestering him like usual while Naruto departed to go home. He was still quite exhausted from the night before. Terrible nightmares plagued that poor soul that day. He rested after immense turmoil, earning him minimal rest. In the morn, while the sky was still a pale red, birds initiated their daily routine of chirping and hunting for food, and across the village people awakened at the first sight of the sun to begin their daily routines as well. This was not the case for 3 young individuals, however. A pink-haired girl sat, her fatigue evident in the bleary bags under her eyes, sat under a tree near a clearing, trying her hardest to combat sleep. Nearby a slightly less tired-looking black-haired boy sat, trying to look well aware and awake, but still letting the world know he was tired by the occasional drooping of his eyes. Out of sight of those 2, in the trees above where they rested, a third figure awaited, silently and cloaked in gray and shadow. Any passerby would be unable to tell if he were tired or not, or even if he was conscious or snoozing. The 3 sat, although one out of the knowledge of the other 2, for many hours, until nearly 11 in the morning when their quite tardy sensei arrived, once again donning his mischievous smile hidden behind his mask. Hello my pupils. Glad to see you all here so early. Sasuke snorted indignantly while immediately sitting up and wiping his face while Sakura jumped up, a grouchy glint in her eye, and yelled back at him, "You're late. You said 6 a.m., not 11, you dope." "Ah, is that what I said? I must have lost track of time," he said with sarcastic humor in his tone. "You know, walking the path of life sometimes leaves one lost, you see. I was lucky to get here as soon as I did," he argued to his students. The 2 visible ones looked at him angrily before Sakura started again. "Besides that, Naruto isn't here yet. He's later than you, sensei." Kakashi smiled behind his mask, the outline of it visible. "Look behind you." Sakura and Sasuke jumped nearly 4 feet off of the ground before spinning around, and in Sakura's case falling over, in order to behold the speaker himself standing in the clearing, draped in his dreary garb as usual. "It seems that Naruto was here with you the whole time, hiding just out of sight. You'll never be a great ninja if your own allies can hide from you," Kakashi said, lightly chuckling simultaneously. "Let's just get on with it, Kakashi-san," grumbled an irate Sasuke. "Right, well then, Uchiha-san," Kakashi started with mockery prevalent in his voice, "today I will be testing your abilities as potential ninja. The test is simple really, you 3, he pointed to the 3 semi-graduates, will have to try to steal these from me," he finished and held up 2 bells. "You have until noon, and since there are 2, the test has a passing rate of 66% and a failure rate of 33. Beyond that, the one of you that doesn't get a bell will be subjected to being tied to a post to watch the rest of us eat lunch." The students noticed a series of 3 wooden training posts nearby, and their stomachs all rumbled with hunger and unease. "Without any questions, let us begin. Show me what you got." With that, the 3 genin disappeared, Kakashi's trained eyes following them easily. Although once they entered the brush of the training area it was difficult for him to follow them. Only Naruto, he noted, was totally hidden. He had no idea where the boy was, nor could he sense him. Kakashi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small orange book, choosing to read and make the graduates seem like child play to him. Sasuke was furious, watching his sensei read while they were in the process of showing their skills and how efficient they were. This irked the Uchiha, his ire profound. Sakura, meanwhile, was hiding somewhere more conspicuous than Sasuke's, watching her sensei with doubt in her mind, thinking he was an imbecile, thinking she had a chance. Naruto meanwhile decided to sit and watch, knowing his sensei wouldn't find him so easily. Sakura had enough waiting, since it had been nearly 5 minutes now hiding in the dirt watching the older ninja read, so she leapt out with a cry and threw a kunai at him which missed him by a mile, in ninja standards at least. She sneered and ran up to Kakashi, intent on proving her inherent skills as a ninja in melee combat. And as she threw one weakly constructed punch, Kakashi retaliated without even closing his book. He simply cast a weak genjutsu with his free hand which caused Sakura to scream and pass out, Kakashi looking down on her form with apathy. 1 down, 2 to go. He called out mockingly to the remaining teammates, still unsure where Naruto was but knowing exactly where Sasuke was. Kakashi took the initiative and threw a shuriken into the bushes, forcing Sasuke out into the clearing to meet Kakashi head-on with a fireball ready. Kakashi didn't even flinch and simply used a replacement technique with a nearby tree branch. He smirked and engaged the young boy as he was preparing a second fireball, which had to be cut short to block Kakashi's kunai attack. The two danced around in a deadly dance, sparks and ringing of metal clinging and shining in the clearing, before Kakashi used a simple shadow clone to replace himself without Sasuke noticing, and hiding in the bushes while Sasuke used a fireball on the clone which disintegrated. In the boy's confusion, Kakashi used an earth jutsu to pull the boy into the ground up to his head, leaving him unable to continue. Sasuke groaned with distaste and demanded to be set free while Kakashi chuckled. Maybe in a moment, Sasuke, for you see, there's only a few minutes left in the test and nobody has even come close to touching the bells on my. Kakashi patted his hip where the bells were, and then he felt nothing and finally noticed the bells were missing, and hurriedly looked around the clearing, and noticed Naruto sitting in the shade of a tree far along the clearing with both bells visible in his grasp. Never mind, said Kakashi with a dumbstruck look. Kakashi had gathered his students and led them to the 3 posts, where he stood in front of them to make his point via speech, while Naruto still clutched the bells tightly in his grip. Well, my opinion is, Kakashi started, you all fail as a team. The purpose of this exercise was to demonstrate your ability to work together, not test your individual abilities, although I must commend you guys for bravado and talent. In any case, Kakashi started again but then stopped as Naruto gave a bell to both of his teammates, leaving him empty-handed. Oh, are you sacrificing yourself for the good of the mission, Naruto? Kakashi looked surprised to say the least. If we were supposed to pass as a team, then let us pass as a team. I couldn't have completed the mission without the assistance of my comrades' distractions. Kakashi nodded and smiled. I suppose, in this case, you pass. I'll see you guys here tomorrow morning for our first official training and missions. And by the way, congratulations as new official genin of Konaha. Kakashi smiled at them again and disappeared from sight, leaving 2 figures standing foolishly with bells in their hands like lost livestock while the final member of their team walked away, not saying a word more. The next few weeks advanced quickly, the team working together, training together, getting mad at Kakashi together, and getting paid for D-rank missions together, and Sasuke and Sakura actually heard Naruto speak more in this short amount of time than they ever had in their pre-genin lives. Truly, this team was effective but separated, each genin preferring to deal with matters their own way rather than working together for efficient management. Of course, Kakashi was always there to lend a helping hand, and bring them back together when they strayed too far from the pack. Eventually, as fate would have it, the team grew rather weary of dull D-rank missions and minimum payment, so upon the next encounter with the Hokage, Sasuke decided to stir things up a bit, much to the ire of everyone present. Hokage-san, I respectfully request that we, Team 7, get a higher rank mission this time. We're tired of doing the dirty work that the lesser genin squads should be doing, said one dirtied Uchiha, covered with scratches from one mischievous cat that was the target of their latest mission. A starry-eyed Sakura and normally blank Naruto stood silently. Kakashi however looked a bit shocked and quickly stated, what he meant, Hokage-sama, was that we simply wished to take a higher risk mission in order to better prepare Team 7 for the future, and to better analyze the team's working efforts, and Kakashi trailed off while the Hokage, irked as he was at Sasuke for regarding him as San, rather than Sama, chuckled and quieted him down. Kakashi, this is fine. If the Uchiha wishes for a higher risk mission, so be it. I'm sure it will be such an enriching mission for all of your students, the Hokage said haughtily, before continuing. We have a C-rank mission to the Land of Waves for one Tazuna, who wishes to hire bodyguards against bandits and whatnot on his way back, and then protection while he constructs his bridge. Will you accept this mission for your team, Kakashi? To say the least, the Genin-sensei looked weary and unsure, but he answered regardless of the bad feeling in his gut, much to the Uchiha's pleasure. Yes, Hokage-sama, we accept. It had been a day. Team 7 and their client had left in the morning after all awakening at a dreadfully early hour and waiting for Kakashi to show. To say the least, their client was a hindrance. He was constantly drunk or buzzed, always carried a bottle of sake in his grasp, and walked unreasonably leisurely, although due to his age or his state of intoxication, none could tell. He wasn't a man with a great first impression. Team 7's first meeting with him ended with the genin feeling angered by his slurring tongue and Kakashi having to hold Sakura back from hitting the drunkard. In any case, they slowly but surely made their way toward the Land of Waves with relative haste. As chance would have it, on this dry and quite hot day, they passed an awkwardly placed puddle in the road. Now to fresh genin, this meant nothing. It was just a puddle of questionable liquid. To the old drunkard Tazuna, he didn't even register anything was amiss. To Kakashi and Naruto, they both noticed something odd about a fresh puddle of water with not a cloud in sight on a hot day. Upon passing this uncertain puddle, out of it appeared two ninja, both wielding deadly chain weapons that connected the two, and they immediately wrapped it around Kakashi and pulled it, slicing the man in twain before any of the genin could react, and even before Tazuna could turn his drunken head about to behold a gruesome scourging of his most powerful hired bodyguard. Sakura screamed at seeing her sensei die from these wretched men who then chuckled at the genin before advancing. Sasuke was not deterred, although he was completely astonished that these men caught his surely powerful sensei off guard. He settled in a defensive position between Sakura and Tazuna and the two attacking ninja. Naruto, whose hands were covered by his cloak, pulled out a few kunai and shuriken without anyone noticing, and before the ninja could get to him and Sasuke, he surprised them all. One of the ninja was within arm's reach of the boy, and the other was before Sasuke, who had a kunai ready to block the man. Naruto on the other hand had not his arms raised, therefore seeming like an easy target to his attacker, which was a foolish move. Before the man could impale the boy with a small blade, Naruto's cloak whipped open with his arm extending towards the man quickly, a kunai in his grasp. Before the attacker could react, he fell dead with a kunai in his eye socket. The sudden dead weight on this end of the chain suddenly pulled back on the other ninja's chain before he could get to attack Sasuke, causing him to trip and land on his back, which gave Sasuke the initiative to pin the man down with a blade to his neck. At this point, Kakashi exited from the nearby brush, surprising all present. Fantastic, my students are made of sterner stuff than most. You successfully repelled this ambush. Naruto, Sasuke, you did well. Sakura, next time at least try to protect the client if you don't wish to participate in combat, okay? Sasuke, leave him alive. We should interrogate him. I'll never tell you anything, scum. You can do nothing, nothing to get me to spill the beans. Nothing, exclaimed the defeated man. Right, said a bored Kakashi. Sasuke, let me see him for a moment. Stay here, Kakashi commanded as he dragged the ninja into the bushes nearby. Within moments, they heard cries of agony from the man before they abruptly stopped. Kakashi exited the brush with a serious look on his face and a rather questionable-looking spoon in his hand. Tazuna at this point was white with fear, Sakura not far behind. Naruto simply cleaned his blade and searched the already dead man for extra supplies while Sasuke tried to be as nosy as possible, trying to see into the trees where he last heard the man, curious what could be done with a spoon. Tazuna-san, we need to speak. At this point, he revealed that due to extremely low money in his country, he had to lie about the mission to decrease the price. It seemed a shipping and industrial tyrant named Gato had caused Tazuna's country to be depleted of finance and resources needed for basic survival. In this shortcoming, he was building a bridge to enhance trade to the region, helping his friends and family survive by bypassing Gato's sea monopoly. He mentioned that the man really wanted him dead, so that the bridge that could free the people of Wave couldn't be completed, and thus keep Gato's wallet fat. With this new knowledge, Team 7 graciously accepted this newly revealed mission of a higher order than initially thought. Kakashi knew it was a bad idea with potentially dangerous ninja out to kill Tazuna, but his team chose to help the man, and so he chose to continue. Hours later, Tazuna revealed that only a mile away was a secret boat waiting to take them to the true island country. A secret and small boat so that they could better evade Gato's mercenary militia which patrolled the waters. After a sickly trip to the island, mostly due to the Konaha ninja never experiencing deep water travel before, they landed on a foggy patch of land, Tazuna explaining his house and family were only a mile or two away. After only a few minutes of traversing this deep and thick fog, Naruto sensed something off in the bushes and without hesitation threw a kunai from beneath his cloak which flew into the bushes faster than Sasuke and Sakura could turn at the sudden noise and movement he made. What was that for Naruto? Sakura inquired as she searched the bushes only to find a quite frightened rabbit that nearly had its head impaled. It was a small rabbit. Why would you attack this poor, defenseless creature? She questioned. Kakashi decided to muse aloud his thoughts. Sakura, that rabbit has white fur. It isn't native to this place at this time of year. There is something off. She looked at the creature again before realizing he was right. A rabbit's coat should be brown at this point in the year. She wondered about it as she released the creature that ran away just as Kakashi yelled for his students, "Get down!" A large object flew through the mist above everyone's head, nearly impacting with Sakura and Tazuna who were almost too slow to dodge the mysterious object. A thud was heard as the now-known massive sword cleaver impaled itself into a tree deeply. A man materialized on the handle to look down on them. Well, what do we have here? A cyclops, an old drunkard, and a bunch of kids, is what I see. Wait, dare I ask, are you copycat Kakashi? Aha, this is indeed fortuitous. My chances of a good battle have indeed increased, so I wish to test my mettle against you, before killing that old man. On guard, copycat. The intimidating figure leapt down from his perch with his massive weapon in tow, landing behind all the gathered party before swinging his massive weapon in order to kill them all in one blow. But Kakashi intercepted his attack with two kunai and pushed the man off, who chucked and disappeared into the fog. Kakashi commanded his genin squad to stay and protect Tazuna as he also disappeared into the fog following the chuckling murderer. So Kakashi, are you prepared to see your kids and client die? Have they even prepared to fight a real battle? Have they ever experienced real fear, I wonder? Suddenly the air pressure increased, causing the genin and Tazuna to fall to their knees, or in Sakura's case fall flat on the muddy ground. They were filled with a sense of intense fear, not daring to move. Sasuke was shaking, Sakura was sobbing, and Tazuna was wide-eyed and one could practically hear his old heart beating. Naruto stood his ground however, although beneath his cloak and hood he, too, was frightened. Not as frightened mind you, as he had seen and experienced horrors the others had not, but nonetheless he felt fear. It seems one of your genin is more or less immune to my killing intent. Hey, Kakashi, you have trained one well at least. The genin heard clashes of metal in the fog, testaments to Kakashi's ability to fight the man with low visibility. Zabuza, demon of the mist, I see they named you such accurately. You are an A-rank missing ninja from Kiri, known for silent killing techniques and that massive cleaver. Sorry to say, Zabuza-san, but today victory shall be mine. Suddenly the clinging of metal stopped and the fog began to disperse, allowing the genin with Tazuna to see the two ninja fighting on a lake. Kakashi having used a massive water attack of some sort with Zabuza nearly unconscious being washed into a tree along the shore at high speeds. The object barely holding him with the pressure exerted on it. Kakashi leapt towards the downed ninja before a senbon was launched into Zabuza's neck from the trees. Kakashi turned to find the source of the weapon when a young child dressed as a hunter ninja revealed himself or herself. Thank you for incapacitating this fiend, for I have been tracking him for some time. Your strength truly is one to behold, for I never was able to defeat this vile monster myself. I shall dispose of the body post-haste, the mystery hunter ninja explained shortly before taking off with the body. Kakashi, tired from his fight with the demon of the mist, barely made it to land before collapsing from exhaustion. The genin were stupefied, not taking a step, confused. Naruto broke everyone's stupor when he quickly made for Kakashi and shouldered the man. Tazuna, bring us to your home. Sensei needs rest. The squad of ninja spent the next week discussing the duo of ninja they encountered. Kakashi meanwhile was resting, and he also had two of his genin doing menial training that Naruto already mastered. They came to the conclusion when Kakashi awakened that the hunter ninja was a fake, and he took Zabuza in order to heal him. He suggested that by the end of the week, the man would be active again, and probably out for blood. This made the children's hearts stop. They didn't want to face this powerhouse again, along with his mysterious accomplice. After that, Kakashi decided to train Sasuke and Sakura in tree climbing exercise, which allows for better chakra control along with the practical use of climbing vertical and upside-down objects. He had Naruto meanwhile, scouting around, knowing that the boy was far more powerful than he let on. After he left the two genin one day, he told Naruto when they were alone, "Naruto, I know you hide some of your abilities, but this is important for our survival and the mission. I am trusting you immensely, and I have faith in your abilities." Naruto felt odd, never having anyone trust him before. This was a new feeling, one that confused him. "I need you to stealthily scout the nearby woods within a 1-mile radius of this house, every day, all day. I'll have shadow clones scouting as well during the night, so no need to worry. During this time, feel free to train or whatever, just keep it secret. I'm trusting you, Naruto. Good luck." Kakashi left the boy with a confused, but light-hearted feeling. Kakashi of course knew all about the boy from the Hokage and Inoichi, and he truly wanted the son of his sensei to live a normal life. He tried his hardest to help the boy, and this was the best he could do at this point while still being practical for the sake of mission success. He watched as Naruto nodded before leaping away into the brush, not to be seen again until dinner. The next few days went along this way, the two normal genin doing basic training, while Kakashi rested nearly all day and night but did have shadow clones dispersed about the area to watch for intruders, while Naruto was training in different spots during the day, having to cycle around the house to keep watch for intruders as well. Training for Naruto, however, did not constitute a normal training schedule of most other people. He would summon at least 100 shadow clones to all come at him at once. One's full power multiplied by 100 against one with potentially painful or fatal consequences truly gets one motivated to fight harder, faster, and smarter. Over the next few days, many areas of the forest became riddled with knocked down trees, stabs, tears, ripped clothing, a bit of blood. Because as Naruto became faster and stronger from his previous training, so did his clones. This was incredibly reckless, but extremely beneficial. The boy Naruto had more fighting experience than all the other genin in Konaha put together, due to this method, and he wasn't stopping anytime soon. Of course, with this training as aforementioned comes dangers, as what happened the third day after Naruto's third training session in the afternoon. He was slightly more careless than normal against his army, leading to him being wounded more than usual, on top of being exhausted from his constant training that day instead of taking better breaks. He passed out in the woods, nearly 3/4 of a mile away from the house. Upon this scene came a young girl with a basket of flowers. She was simply picking various herbs and roots when she noticed that part of the woods nearby showed signs of a recent battle, and there near a clearing of broken trees she spied the young genin that was with the copycat, unconscious and alone. She slowly advanced on the boy, remembering that he wasn't affected by Zabuza's killing intent and probably more than enough to stop her. She slowly advanced upon the boy and put down her basket of herbs before reaching into her robe to grasp a senbon when suddenly, without warning, Naruto's hand shot up and caught hers before she could properly draw her senbon. His grip was iron, she was unable to get free. "You are that hunter ninja that allowed Zabuza to escape," he stated bluntly. "And if you were trying to kill me, that tiny needle would do nothing, so don't bother trying." Surprisingly, he let her go, causing her to stumble backwards only to land on her rear. "Were you awake the whole time, genin?" she asked him. I woke up when you were dozens of meters away. The ninja girl's eyes widened, realizing that he was truly above her level if he wasn't threatened by Senbon and could wake up from someone stealthily moving through the woods far off in the distance. She realized she had to get out of there, before realizing her basket was right next to the now upright sitting genin, while she was farther away. Judging his speed from before, she knew she couldn't get it without him interfering. You need these healing herbs to heal Zabuza, correct? Asked Naruto, easily identifying common healing herbs in her basket. Naruto heard a slight voice, or something akin to a stray thought, something telling him to kill her now while there was still a chance, to be ruthless and practical. In fact, it was the same suggestive voice that told him to flay Mizuki. I should kill you now while you are no threat to us, and keep these from reaching Zabuza. The girl's eyes widened even more in fright, knowing fully that this genin surely had the ability to dispose of her easily. Just like you tried to dispose of me just moments ago. He stood, stepped over the basket and slowly advanced upon the poor whimpering girl who backed up into a tree, unable to flee. Naruto's little voice of guidance had never lied to him. It always gave him sound, useful, and practical advice, and always alerted him when danger was near. Of course, it wasn't really a voice in his head or anything graspable. It was like a separate part of his mind that he could not access would place suggestive thoughts into his true mind, to alert him to something. Such as the girl who woke him up, it wasn't his doing, but the suggestion was planted into his mind that an enemy was approaching, causing him to awaken. Naruto had no reason to distrust the only entity that ever helped him on a regular basis, even if it was just a part of his own mind helping him out, or so he thought. Little did he or anyone else know that within him a great demon was slowly but surely corrupting him, turning his emotions into malicious shadows of true emotions, leaving the demon room to manipulate, subversively, without anyone knowing the truth. However, even the demon could not control all of Naruto's personality and emotions, at least at this point in time. Sometimes a small bit of humanity would escape him, showing the world that he, Naruto Uzumaki, was still a human. And in this case, he did not heed the suggestion, once again showing that Naruto was human. He still advanced upon the frightened girl, her mind flashing before her eyes, not knowing what would happen next. Many days later, Naruto not having said a word, they all rested soundly, Kakashi revealing that any day now Zabuza would be attacking again, and they had to rest for as long as possible. A few days ago, Naruto hadn't come home that night, but instead returned late in the morning, worrying Kakashi, so Kakashi ordered him to never be that late again, to which Naruto complied. Again, Naruto had trained until really late that eve, Kakashi giving Naruto permission to rest as needed the next day, but upon awakening he was told to make for the bridge. From this point on, training was over for all the genin, and they had to stick together to guard the bridge against Zabuza and what they assumed was his accomplice. The next morning, all the ninja except for Naruto had vacated the premises in order to guard the bridge and Tazuna. Later on in the morning, Naruto was still sleeping soundly when the suggestion reached his mind that he should wake up immediately and stealthily make his way to the first floor of Tazuna's home. He did awaken, and heard Tazuna's daughter Tsunami and grandson Inari yelling at what he noted to be intruders, probably sent by Gato to capture them, meaning that Zabuza was probably making his move as well. He grabbed his cloak and equipment before launching himself to the first floor as fast as possible, and by the time he landed at the bottom of the stairs, and the two enemies turned towards him, he had already sent twin kunai pinpointed for their skulls. They fell dead before knowing who was behind them. You two, stay here. They were the last enemies nearby. Naruto finished and disappeared, trying to get to the bridge as fast as possible before it was too late. On the bridge that was nearing the end of its construction thanks to Tazuna, all the civilians were unconscious, or dead. Large splatters of blood indicative of a large slashing weapon were seen. Others had senbon littering their bodies, probably just unconscious. By the time most of Team 7 had arrived this morning with Tazuna, this is the scene they stumbled upon with fright and caution. Not even a minute later, a thick fog rolled in over the landscape, masking the man who'd taunted them nearly a week ago. Hello kids, guess who's back? Kakashi, I think we had a little unfinished business, yes? The man hidden in the fog laughed darkly. The clashing of kunai and sword resounded across the battlefield shortly after Kakashi disappeared too. Sakura, Sasuke, take Tazuna back to his house, now. And watch out for his accomplice. The genin along with Tazuna quickly ran to the edge of the bridge to take him home when the false hunter ninja made himself known to the trio, telling them to surrender Tazuna or be annihilated. Sakura stayed by Tazuna with a single kunai drawn to protect him, while Sasuke charged the hunter ninja. Naruto arrived shortly after coming from the house, only to see Sakura protecting Tazuna and yelling for Sasuke worriedly, while Sasuke was trapped in some sort of ice jutsu from the hunter ninja, and Kakashi and Zabuza couldn't be seen, both hidden within Zabuza's fog jutsu. Naruto decided to assist Sasuke first, having the most chances at finishing off Haku quickly. He stealthily arrived near the ice dome, watching Sasuke slowly accumulate senbon in his limbs. Then, Haku ceased his attack, Naruto realizing that he was in the mirror he was closest to. When Haku was telling the downed genin that he was about to die, Naruto intervened and smashed the ice mirror that Haku was really in, causing a chain reaction of the other mirrors dissipating. Sorry to say, but I can't let you further harm my teammate. Sorry to say, Naruto, but I don't really need to. It seems he has a low physical tolerance. Haku pointed to Sasuke, seemingly dead now. Sakura, who was a mere dozen meters away, couldn't take this fake hunter ninja harming her Sasuke-kun. She wouldn't stand for his death to be in vain, so she launched a kunai with an explosive note, not caring about Naruto's close proximity. Surprisingly, her aim was true. Naruto's suggestion went wild, and he yelled for Haku to get down as he situated himself between Haku and the incoming explosive note. Sakura looked absolutely furious at this hunter ninja, not even caring that her teammate was nearby. She saw two figures on the ground when the smoke cleared, next to Sasuke. Without thinking, she left her client who was in danger in order to see if Sasuke was alright and to finish off that blasted hunter ninja. She arrived and instantly noticed Sasuke was groaning in pain, showing he was indeed alive. Sakura was beyond happy at this point in time, only just turning to see her cloaked teammate on the ground and panting, trying to get up, not expecting his absolutely idiotic teammate to try anything with him in the way, although he shouldn't be surprised. Only upon getting to his knees did both he and Sakura both look at the hunter ninja, whose mask had been broken in the explosion, revealing that the hunter was a female, about the same age as the genin. To Sakura, she did not care. She approached Haku with a kunai, stating, "You're going to die for what you did to Sasuke-kun." She flew in a rage towards Haku, who was too disoriented to block or dodge, and before she had a kunai jabbed in her eye, Naruto blocked Sakura's own weapon with his own. Sakura, she may have valuable information. If you can capture an enemy ninja, it is always preferable to killing them, if you remember what Iruka-sensei has taught us. Sakura calmed down and left Haku and Naruto in order to help her Sasuke-kun, who was just barely conscious enough to register mentally that was a girl, before passing out with a pained expression on his face. Meanwhile, while that was going on, Kakashi managed to trick Zabuza into getting some of Kakashi's blood on the sword, allowing one hit or two to connect. Only then did Kakashi pause and exclaim that he would be victorious. Zabuza was skeptical when he heard a poof, and unsure of what it was he prepared his next attack when out of the fog many summoned dogs attacked, holding him down in place as they were extremely heavy and strong. With his concentration ruined, the fog dispersed, allowing the entire battlefield clarity. Zabuza was held in place while Kakashi exclaimed, "Today, Zabuza, demon of the mist shall die." As he performed several quick hand signs before lightning coated his hand, and he ran towards Zabuza with his arm extended, the deadly lightning fist probably more than enough to kill a man. Naruto, who was still nursing his wounds from Sakura's explosive tag, only then noticed that Haku had started heading for Zabuza at top speeds, knowing what she was about to do. Naruto also got up, although unsuccessfully tried to chase Haku due to his recent wounds. He yelled for her to stop, but her mind was in a frenzy to not allow Zabuza to die. She intercepted the attack. Kakashi had not enough time to direct his attack around Haku, who just appeared before Zabuza, and she took the lightning jab in her chest. "Hey, what a useful tool you are, Haku. I never doubted your skills to keep me alive. It seems you've done your duty to the letter," Zabuza revealed to the onlookers before he tossed Haku's body away, Kakashi and Naruto looking on with disgust at his treatment of his own loyal ninja. Kakashi instead at such close proximity prepared to stab Zabuza to death when he drew a kunai. Zabuza however at the last minute had been performing a one-handed jutsu which washed the dogs and Kakashi away while he escaped to another part of the bridge near the now unguarded Tazuna. Kakashi cursed at Sakura's abandonment of her client when he rushed toward Tazuna. Sakura had been mostly oblivious to all as she was still helping the unconscious boy. Naruto on the other hand rushed towards the downed Haku, who was bleeding profusely. He quickly skidded to a halt and knelt by her only to grimace beneath his scarf at her grievous wounds, and he knew she wouldn't make it. "Haku, why did you do this? Why would you protect that bastard who treats you like so? What hath fate obscured from thine sight, only to realize that nearest the end of thine life your time was spent with this uncouth beast? You could have lived on Haku, why would you do this?" Naruto was hurt, almost as if he witnessed Iruka die again because he wasn't fast enough to stop her from going to Zabuza. "Naruto, he is the only man that gave my life purpose since my family died. He cared for me," she coughed up blood and continued weakly. "He kept me clothed, fed, and trained me to be useful to him. I owe him my life." She coughed again before her sight started fading. She could barely make out Naruto now and could hardly register the still clinging sounds of metal off in the distance of her master fighting Naruto's sensei. "Haku," Naruto started as he grabbed her hand, before she coughed again and told him, "Naruto, this is my fate. Please, accept it just as I have. I just wish I could see your face, one more time." Her eyes closed and she smiled contently, as if she were at peace with the world around her, even with the death, hurt, and violence. A bit of blood dribbled from her mouth that Naruto wiped with his gloved hand. Haku was at the very end of her time, content to die protecting her master and seeing Naruto one more time. Then she felt something she didn't expect, a drop of liquid spilling from Naruto who was kneeled over her, falling onto her face. "Naruto," she whispered faintly as the life left her body, and her grip left his as her hand fell to the stone bridge beneath them. Naruto felt the same feeling he felt when Iruka died. He felt anger, fury of the highest extent. Everything was turning red and hazy. Kakashi and Zabuza stopped fighting momentarily to turn towards the genin who were down the bridge away before noticing Naruto hunched over Haku's corpse, a red miasma of chakra escaping him, before hearing him scream in agony. Sakura who was closer to the boy squeaked in fright and grabbed the now de-needled Uchiha and ran for Tazuna, not even looking back to the source of this powerful and oppressive chakra and inhuman scream. "Kakashi, what the hell is your student? What is that vile chakra?" yelled a now frightened Zabuza, looking at a worried Kakashi, who did not respond, instead watching Naruto closely with his Sharingan to observe what happened, and if they should vacate the area. Naruto stood, his tattered cloak whipping about himself due to the force of the chakra exiting his body. His hood was now off of his head, revealing most of his head to the onlookers, although the scarf still covered his mouth and lower face. His hair was a white gray, similar to Kakashi's own, and his eyes were blood red. Sakura and Tazuna could not withstand the pressure of this deadly and evil chakra and simply passed out along with the Uchiha, while Zabuza and Kakashi were shaking in fear, due to the killing intent released. Naruto, who was at least 24 meters away, turned slowly towards Zabuza, and locked eyes with the man who grasped his sword tighter at seeing the boy's slit pupil eyes staring at him with vengeance clear in his intentions. When Naruto screamed for Haku, but it did not register to the boy. To Naruto, all he could register was the man that was the cause of Haku's death, and the fear he could practically taste rolling off of him. With nary a second to spare, the boy disappeared from view of the two elite ninja only to appear before Zabuza with his hand protruding from Zabuza's back, grasping his heart that beat once more due to the speed of being wrenched out of the man before stopping, the man himself not able to respond before realizing he was dead. The chakra around Naruto burned Zabuza, his skin slowly flaking and peeling off and turning black, and when the boy wrenched his hand back out, even the wound he made was already cauterized by the intense vile heat of his red chakra. Only then did they hear a man from the other side of the bridge who appeared with a militia of mercenaries exclaim, "Ha! That demon of the mist was killed by a glowing red kid and some old gray-haired guy. I guess I won't have to pay him now. Mercenaries, take out these ninja and rid our land of these pests." And before Kakashi could turn towards Naruto, he was gone, leaving the freshly cooked cadaver to fall to the ground, sword leaving his grip. Kakashi quickly looked to the other side of the bridge where Naruto stood in front of the militia, those in which could now tremble in fear at the oppressive chakra the boy released. None of them could move, they were stationary, scared that if they moved this beast would kill them. Unfortunately for them, that was the case anyway. Not even a minute later, there lay more than 100 eviscerated, mutilated, and burned bodied and gallons of blood splashed along the bridge, and 2 figures left standing. A blood-drenched and red-glowing Naruto and a cowering Gato, leader of the shipping industry that caused all of this in the first place. "Boy, I can pay you. I can give you anything you want. I will leave this land. Please let me live," he begged with cowardice evident. He saw Naruto turn away from him and walk back towards his team, when he sighed in relief, only to grimace in pain when the boy appeared behind him with his hand piercing the inside of the older man. He screamed bloody murder as the evil chakra burned his very flesh, inside and out. Naruto didn't even give him the pleasure of quick death. He stood there with his hand inside the man's abdomen, letting the chakra poisoning and burning kill him from the inside out. Only afterwards, villagers who had heard the commotion arrived on the scene, to gasp in shock and awe that this one boy killed all the militia and the evil tyrant. After releasing the corpse of the old man, the boy passed out, his eyes turning back into icy blue tones. After a day of cleaning and finishing the building of the bridge, the entire town celebrated the ninja present at the ceremony. Even Tazuna and his family was praised. Naruto on the other hand was unconscious from the use of this mysterious red chakra during the battle, not used to feeling so much evil power before having it dissipate shortly after. The village chose to not even acknowledge his deeds, even though it was he who saved them all, due to his more than violent means. Nobody mentioned him, nobody mentioned the bloody aftermath, and nobody wondered about the missing member of their team who was resting at Tazuna's home. A day earlier, Kakashi was worried about the boy, wondering what could have brought on this transformation, knowing that Naruto only turned in times of great emotional stress, such as when Iruka died, or so he was told by the Hokage. After the battle, he brought his genin to Tazuna's home, and carried Naruto himself. He went to a private guest room with just himself and Naruto to lock the door, knowing the boy wouldn't want anyone else to see what would happen. Kakashi undressed the boy's bloodied clothes, but kept him decent, mind you, to wash them. He even took off the boy's scarf to wash it, having not left Naruto's face for a very, very long time. Kakashi gasped when he saw the boy's face, hearing about but never seeing the scars that plagued him. The deep, raw scars of the Kyuubi whiskers left by some villagers years ago still looked fresh, and the Glasgow smile etched past his lips also looked fresh, and in fact Kakashi saw blood dripping from the corners of his mouth. Only then did Kakashi realize that speaking probably left the boy in pain, as it would aggravate the scars and cause bleeding. He wondered how this young man could handle this incredible but terrible stress. Kakashi allowed nobody in the room after that for the boy's sake. He cleaned the clothes and left them near Naruto for when he awakened. Afterward, Kakashi went to check on his other genin to make sure they were okay, letting Sakura know that Sasuke would be fine, having only his non-lethal pressure points attacked. He went back to the bridge to help the villagers clean up. Only when he arrived most of the gore was gone, but the bodies of Zabuza and Haku were left where they died. After disposing of Zabuza and burying him and planting his sword on his grave as a marker, he went to check Haku's body before burying it as well. And he noticed that she had blood wiped off of her face. He knew Naruto did it. He also noticed a conspicuous drop of blood on her cheek, the angle of which letting Kakashi know that Naruto bled. Naruto bled for her in sorrow, allowing himself to speak through the pain, even to the point where his mouth bled through his scarf and a drop fell on her face. Kakashi felt ultimate sorrow for the young ninja before going to bury the body of this person he knew nothing about. He would have to ask the boy about it when the time was appropriate, knowing that talking about Iruka was a sore subject for him as well. In any case, the celebration of the finishing of the bridge was underway, and he chose to think about these darker matters later, his mind leaving Naruto, and instead went to mingle with the local women. Everyone was happy, everyone was glad that their oppression would be over now. Nobody considered how Naruto felt, as he was alone in Tazuna's home, twisting and turning in restless sleep, having a dream about the first time he and Haku met. Naruto closed the distance between himself and the girl, before holding out his hand to help her off the ground. "Why are you helping me? I thought you were going to kill me?" the false hunter ninja asked Naruto. He responded quickly, because, I can tell you are a good person, like my old sensei. You would not harm me, for your heart was not in it, even if you were prepared to kill me. The ninja girl blushed, and nodded. May I ask your name? She asked the cloaked boy. I am Naruto. Nice to meet you Naruto, I am Haku. I am glad to finally meet you. The two newly met ninja talked the whole afternoon. Although Haku could not tell that Naruto was bleeding, he bled for her. His facial scars bled every time he spoke, only speaking when necessary. She did not know that he would endure it for her. It was late at night when they finally finished telling each other about themselves, practically spilling their heart's contents to the other. And at some point during the conversation Naruto had lowered his hood to show Haku his white hair and ice blue eyes. Only then did Haku feel truly sorry for the boy, but simultaneously felt closer to him. She understood some of his pain. She understood that he was alone in this world, and that she was one of the very few, in fact the only one his age, that he was close to. It was at that moment that she asked him a question. Naruto, feel free to say no, but, may I see your face, just this once? He looked down upon her questioningly, one eyebrow raised. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have, she started, but Naruto interrupted with a finger pressed against her lips making her blush again. He raised his hands to his scarf to reveal his face to one of the few people he trusted, although he knew not why, since he only knew her for a while. He couldn't explain it, but he felt obliged. He allowed her to see his visage, the only person he ever voluntarily showed his face to. She noticed blood stains around his mouth and realized that all this time talking with him has had his old scars bleeding. Naruto, why did you not tell me that you were in pain? I'm so sorry for making you speak for so long. She started to cry lightly, knowing it was her fault her new friend had hurt himself, just to speak with her. It is not your fault, I chose to speak to you. I do not know why, I simply feel compelled to answer you. He spoke honestly. Naruto, she started before she leaned in towards him and gave him a chaste kiss. His eyes widened in surprise, never expecting to feel so intimate with another human. Slowly, he felt more content than he had in a very long time. He closed his eyes in a brief moment of bliss and kissed her back. Needless to say, afterwards their kissing became more intimate and fervent, until they ended up being ultimately intimate. That night, Naruto and Haku became one, both of them happy, especially Naruto, who had never thought something so wonderful would ever happen to him. He was happy as he lay with her afterward, both of them being tired, before he covered them with his cloak as they fell asleep on the forest floor. Both of them content and feeling a connection neither had experienced before. As they fell asleep, a whisper of love was heard between the two. It was bliss. The next morn, Naruto awakened, alone. He looked around, not finding a single reminder of the night before. He felt betrayed, but only momentarily as he noticed something clinging to his cloak. A beautiful blue rose with a note attached. Dear Naruto, I am sorry to have left you so early, but my master Zabuza requires these medical herbs soon, and I do not wish for him to become too suspicious of my actions. I cannot wait for the next time we meet Naruto. I will relish the chance to be with you again, and make love with you. I love you, Haku. Naruto smiled for the first time in a long time, a very long time. He cleaned himself of the musty scent of the intimacy of the night before clothing himself in his typical cloak and whatnot before heading back to Tazuna's house. Only then did Naruto awaken, tears falling from his eyes openly. He dressed himself in his clothes, noting that in his satchel he always kept on him holding various supplies. There still was the note from Haku. He would cherish it. Once dressed, he noticed that the house was empty. He found a note from Kakashi in his room that explained that the celebration was commencing, and if he should awaken he should come. Naruto looked at the letter a few seconds more before burning it with chakra and going to the mound where the dead were buried after the recent battle. Tazuna, his family and Team 7 returned later, to find Naruto was gone. They wondered where he would have gone, not knowing why he wouldn't have gone to the celebration. Kakashi told his kids to stay put, and he left the house, knowing where Naruto would be. He arrived at the newly dug burial mound, and noticed Naruto wasn't there, but atop Haku's grave there was a blue rose, although Kakashi knew not where it came from. He returned to the house and saw Naruto there, disheveled and exhausted looking, although he had done no physical exercise recently. The other occupants of the house were very quiet, remembering what the boy did the other day. The next morning, the village had gathered to wish the ninja a fond farewell, thanking them and giving gifts to show their appreciation for freeing their country. The ninja left, thanking everyone and saying goodbye to everyone before leaving. Tazuna pulled Naruto aside at the last moment and told him in a low voice, "Naruto, my village, my people sincerely thank you for freeing us. I want you to know we will be eternally thankful for your actions. If ever you find yourself here again, you will be welcomed." Tazuna smiled at him. Naruto nodded in acceptance before saying it was no problem, before catching up to his team who was already halfway across the bridge. Later that night, the ninja chose to stop and make camp about 5/8 of the way to Konaha. That night, just for precaution, Kakashi decided that they would have one guard out at a time, while the others rested. Naruto was awakened lastly, only a few hours before dawn, to sit alone by their campfire while the others slept. Unknown to him in his sleepy state, he left his weapons and whatnot near his mat, not needing it since they were so close to Konoha he doubted they would be attacked. In the morn, Sakura and Sasuke awakened in the same tent, Kakashi having slept in the other tent. They noticed Naruto's bag of equipment nearby, and paid it no mind until Sakura happened to mention a piece of paper sticking out of it. Sasuke couldn't help but check, as he knew nothing else of his teammate. "Sakura, get that. Let's see what it is." She looked at the bag and without even considering the ramifications she took out the paper and unfolded it for her and Sasuke to read. Only minutes later, Kakashi awakened to the sound of Sasuke and Sakura shouting in pain. Kakashi immediately grabbed a kunai and jumped out of the tent to come face to face with Naruto. "Naruto, what are you doing?" he asked, just noticing Sakura and Sasuke's wounded and grounded forms. They seemed to enjoy going through private possessions. He answered honestly, with obvious malice in his voice. "Sensei," wheezed out Sasuke. Naruto was fraternizing with the enemy. He finished and gasped, the recent punch making it hard for him to breathe. He pointed towards a paper Naruto had in his grip that was torn slightly and now crinkled. He gasped when he saw Naruto's red eyes again, although they were slowly turning blue again. "Naruto, is this true? What is that paper?" Kakashi asked him, hand open for the universal sign of, "Give it." Naruto was loyal. He knew he had to listen to his sensei, as per the code of ninja oath. He reluctantly allowed Kakashi to read it. Kakashi's eyes widened at the revelation before he carefully folded it back up and gave it to Naruto, not saying a word, in understanding silence. He knew what kind of emotional trauma the boy went through, even if it involved feelings for the enemy. "Pack up, all of you. We're leaving in 10 minutes, stated Kakashi, his voice firm and slightly angered. Sasuke and Sakura thought he was mad at Naruto for hiding this secret. How wrong they were. Hours later, they arrived at Konaha, glad to see their home once more as Sakura exclaimed aloud what the rest of them were feeling. "It's good to be home." They arrived at the Hokage's office when the Hokage was surprised to finally see them. "Kakashi and Team 7, it is good to finally see you. The mission took much longer than anticipated, I see. Kakashi, go ahead and report your first C-rank mission with Team 7. Kakashi explained truthfully how they encountered the twin ninja that ambushed Team 7 from their puddle genjutsu, to how they first encountered Zabuza and the false hunter ninja, Haku. He explained how they trained for the next week until the final battle took place at the bridge. He noted to the Hokage that some of the details should be reserved for later, although he did explain what everyone saw, such as Sakura endangering Naruto's life with the explosive tag, to which the Hokage nodded. Needless to say, the Hokage was proud that this Genin squad completed an A-rank mission, but enraged that they could be so careless about ally ninja. Only after Kakashi had finished, however, did Sakura blurt out, "Sensei, aren't you going to tell him about Naruto's little escapade?" Before Kakashi sighed heavily and Sasuke smirked at Naruto, who visibly tensed. "Kakashi, what are they talking about?" asked a skeptical-looking Hokage, almost sure Naruto did nothing that wasn't somehow beneficial to the mission. He knew the boy was practical that way. "Well, Kakashi started, rubbing the back of his head. "It seems that Naruto, fraternized with the false hunter ninja girl before the final battle." The Hokage just sat nodding his head, then stopped. He shook his head, picked at his ear a little, made an incredulous face and looked back at Kakashi suddenly before asking with an odd tone to his voice, Did I just hear you correctly?" His eyes were wide when Kakashi nodded. Sasuke and Sakura smirked at the expense of Naruto, who was still very tense, practically making the whole room feel a bit more uncomfortable than necessary. How did you find this out, Kakashi? Asked the Hokage seriously, before Sakura exclaimed loudly. Sasuke and I found a note in Naruto's satchel from that weak ninja. We took it and showed Kakashi-sensei. Then Naruto attacked us viciously. The Hokage wasn't pleased. Sakura, Sasuke, you two should be ashamed. You never invade a fellow ninja's privacy like that. Never. And Sakura, you never put a teammate in danger like that. Get out of my office now, said the Hokage threateningly, scaring the poor genin out of there immediately. Afterward, he got up and locked the door before casting a protective sound jutsu over the office. He walked to Naruto and knelt down before the boy before asking, Naruto, may I see this note please? If it is too private, then feel free to deny. Naruto shook his head and looked down, getting the note from his satchel and allowing the Hokage to read it. Naruto, he said before giving the note back to him. The boy took it carefully. Kakashi, you told me you would tell me the details about what happened on the bridge. Sasuke and Sakura were unconscious you say, so they didn't see. What happened? Inquired the Hokage. Kakashi sighed and explained to him. Hokage-sama, due to Sakura endangering Naruto with that explosive tag, he was temporarily unable to move at his normal speed. Haku got away from him with enough speed to intercept my Chidori, which was aimed for Zabuza. I killed her, accidentally, before continuing to battle Zabuza. The monster mentioned how his tool was useful for keeping him alive. Naruto spoke to Haku one last time, although I know not what they said since I was busy with the battle, before Naruto's chakra visibly exploded, giving him enhanced power. He massacred Zabuza and the militia of mercenaries and killed Gato himself, Kakashi revealed. The Hokage was astonished. Naruto, what did you tell her before she passed on? Asked the Hokage. I told her that she shouldn't have done that for that monster. Then, everything went red. I felt like that night Mizuki killed Iruka, except worse. I was angry, so angry. I'm sorry Gigi, I should have controlled myself, Naruto apologized. Naruto, it is okay, my boy. It's okay. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sure she was important to you. Naruto, you should go home and rest, my boy. Naruto nodded before leaving, his head lowered in internal agony. Kakashi, what do you think of Naruto's mental state and actions on the mission? Asked the Hokage seriously after the boy left. Kakashi pondered for a moment before answering. Well, he was late one day when he was training alone. I thought he just trained too hard and passed out. Now that I know the truth I know that Hunter Ninja was our enemy, but I truly, honestly feel bad for him. Sensei's son should not be so alone in life, and have his only love taken from him. It's too much for such a young boy to go through this trauma. And he hasn't shown any emotion about it. He gets tense when it is brought up but no emotion otherwise, although he did show anger when he took the note back from Sasuke and Sakura. I think he's extremely confused by this. He doesn't want to show his emotions, but at the same time holding it in is only making it worse. Not to mention he doesn't know how to properly deal with a close one who has died, as we've seen with Iruka. He's becoming emotionally unstable, Hokage-sama. On a side note, regarding the Kyuubi's chakra, started Kakashi, causing the Hokage's visage to darken considerably, it seems to be. I don't know, corrupting him in some way. It's as if the beast is working its way through the boy's mind. Every time he becomes emotionally unstable, or loses control, the chakra of the beast leaps out, and typically ends in a very violent bloodbath. Sasuke and Sakura are lucky he didn't do more than punch them, so he seems to have some control over his actions in that state. He needs help, Hokage-sama. Sensei's son shouldn't be anything like this. The Hokage pondered on what Kakashi had said for a few minutes, silently thinking to himself. Kakashi, do you think your students are ready for the Chunin exams? Kakashi looked at the Hokage incredulously. Excuse me? You want me to put a potentially bloodthirsty demon-influenced boy in that test when he's already emotionally unstable? They could easily pass, but there's no way. No way. The Hokage looked at him tiredly before responding to him. Kakashi, please listen. This is the best thing we can do right now. Just leave Naruto in an environment where he can work how he wants, as violent as he wants, and not be penalized while he works out his emotional issues. Not to mention Sasuke's involvement in the exams would help our village's standing, you know. In any case, let them choose. Give them the papers tomorrow when you guys meet, and let them choose to take it or not. Dismissed, Kakashi. Kakashi nodded briskly before leaving the office with 3 papers, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts, at the base of which was Naruto. The Hokage sighed and put his head between his hands. Naruto, what can I do? Minato, what should I do? The day after, Sakura and Sasuke were sitting beneath the trees at Training Ground 7, waiting for Kakashi to show and knowing Naruto was around them, somewhere, although they could not spot him. Sakura asked Sasuke out of boredom waiting for Kakashi, Naruto sure is perverted. He did it with an enemy ninja. He's so stupid, she was probably just playing him. Sasuke grunted, although he had to admit that on some level he was jealous that Naruto got to do the dirty, although he didn't understand along with Sakura that he felt a real connection. Naruto overheard this and his face contorted in anger and rage, his eyes slowly turning red, before he calmed himself down, knowing he shouldn't hurt his teammates, no matter how much they angered him or dishonored the name of his dead love. He noticed Kakashi arrive when he called for Naruto to join them, although they couldn't see him. He stood on the branch he was standing on before making his way to the rest of Team 7. Good, now that you guys are all here, I have a special question for you guys. Do you want to join the Chunin exams starting this week? Asked Kakashi before holding up 3 papers and giving one to each of his students. You must fill this out, then all 3 of you must report to the academy on the date supplied at the room indicated. If one of you doesn't show up, the others cannot participate, as squads must compete as an entire team of 3. Anyway, this week you all have free, do some training, deep thinking, and decide whether or not to show up at the exams in a few days. Dismissed, Kakashi said as Sakura and Sasuke went off with Sakura badgering him into the distance. However, Naruto stayed, knowing Kakashi had something to say to him. Naruto, I want you to rest this week. I know you went through traumatic experiences recently, and I want you to know I'm here for you as your sensei, and so is Hokage-sama. If you ever need to talk about anything, please come to one of us. We only want to help you. Naruto nodded before walking away silently. Kakashi sighed and went to the closest bar to grab a drink or 50. And thus, the following few days Naruto spent training, contemplating his failures in life, becoming more and more self-condescending after his failure with not only Iruka but Haku. He could barely look himself in the mirror anymore. In any case, the night before the exams took place, Naruto decided to stay home after training non-stop for the last few days. He forced himself to deal with his reflection, and contemplated his life thus far. And thus, my life as it has been to this point in time. Anger, hatred, loss, sorrow. Emotions are a parameter that will only hold me back. And so, as seconds pass into minutes, minutes into hours, hours into days, days into weeks and into months and years, I finally realized without any trace of doubt that I was a jest. A living comedy perhaps made solely for the purpose of entertainment of a higher power? Or is it that I was created as a scapegoat for the fears, inadequacies, and unhappiness of the inhabitants of my homeland? Regardless of truth, as of now and the true purpose of me living to this day, I have survived. In no small part this is due to my resiliency, however I have not escaped unscarred, for deep, permanent, and unforgiving serrated scars constantly tear and grind at my mind and torment what's left of my sanity. I can no longer feel anything but negativity, in all of its forms from sadness to anger to hatred to paranoia. I feel these now as naturally as one feels normal emotions, leaving me what people call abnormal, which in my mind is an improvement. For without careless positive emotions running amok, without happiness to delude myself, without friendship to lessen the true load of my humanity, without concern of other people to cloud and confuse my natural judgment, I feel more than human. Given, it is hard for me to even consider feeling what is considered normal, as I haven't felt those dreaded emotions for many years. At many times I feel nearly normal, and therefore grieve my disposition with the people I am forced to be around and live with. I feel worthless, empty and meaningless. I lament living a single day of this hell, and I despise every single person who has ever wronged me and even more the people who I see blindly living happily, when I have done nothing to them on a personal level. Most of the time however, I feel as if I am God, that I am more than any human, that without emotion, without lament nor happiness, I am an empty shell, eager to absorb knowledge and power and free to make decisions not based in morality and righteousness. The path to true power in this retrospect is not obscured, but free to my manipulation and my advantage. However, I digress. I am sure you may wonder, who is this speaking, or something akin to, why bother with the introduction? And the answer is, my mind on a constant basis regularly rewinds time to relive the most important aspects of my past, and the best way to reflect on my life is with none other than my true reflection, thought a young child, no more than 13, as he stared at his blank, empty void of eyes in the cracked and dirty-looking glass in front of him. He turned away, tired of his self-ranting, his hatred, and his emotions that ran rampant. He went to sleep, only to suffer once more as a night of nightmarish haunts plagued his mind reminiscent of his failures with his loved ones, only to awaken minimally rested the next morning, the day the Chunin exams were to start.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.